AITA for not picking up my husband from the airport. I traveled to Ohio to visit my parents earlier this week with our two young kids, 4 and 1.5 years old. My husband's original flight was leaving our home state at 12:30 p.m. with an arrival time of 5 p.m. EST. The airport is 1.5 hours from my parents' house. He missed his flight because he didn't remember to take his ID to the airport and didn't have enough time to drive home and back before takeoff. The next available flight doesn't land until 12:30 a.m. AITA for refusing to pick him up tonight and telling him to get a hotel, and we will pick him up in the morning. I'm so mad he could be so irresponsible to not even remember his ID when he only had to pack and remember things for himself. Yes, I could make the drive and not get home until 3 a.m., but he's the one who messed the entire day up, so why should I be miserable and tired the next day? He thinks he can Uber or take a taxi, but I find it hard to believe someone would take on that job when it's such a far drive from the airport, so late at night. ETA, I don't care if he takes an Uber or taxi, I just won't be picking him up if there isn't one available.
Otter for not accepting a neighbor's backhanded apology. The other night, my partner and I were woken up by a neighbor's car alarm at 2:30 a.m. I got up thinking it might have been one of our cars and grabbed all the keys to disarm the alarms. Turns out it was a neighbor's car. The alarm went on for another 5 minutes with no one in that house waking up to turn it off. I went over to the house to knock on the door to let them know. Unfortunately, their front door is behind locked gates, which I didn't want to go through out of respect for their privacy. Eventually, the neighbor next door to them called, and someone finally came to the front window to try to disarm the alarm. They tried to disarm it 10 plus times, honestly, probably closer to 20, without success. I got impatient and yelled out for them to come outside and sort it. Eventually, the alarm was turned off. I couldn't go back to sleep for another 2 hours and only got 1 hour of sleep after that. I ended up sleeping in and was nearly late to work. But crap happens, and I moved on. It's just life in a neighborhood. Unfortunately, the owner of the car didn't feel the same way. She came over the next day while I wasn't home and talked to my partner. She led with an apology, but then finished by saying she didn't appreciate being yelled at 2:30 a.m. I didn't expect an apology, and honestly, couldn't care less. Stuff like that happens. People get cranky in the moment, but you move on. It's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. My partner thinks I could have handled it better. I agreed that I would have, if it had been 2:30 in the afternoon. But at 2:30 in the morning, you can't expect people to be woken up in a good mood. I think the neighbor only came over to apologize so she could take a jab at me and feel justified, instead of owning the fact that she woke people up. Am I the asshole for laughing at the idea of going over and apologizing after receiving a backhanded apology? AITA for telling my mom her brain injury is her fault. My 17-MA mom, 46F, has been on drugs almost her entire life and has very often chose them over me and my older siblings. Her drug addiction got so bad, I forced my dad, 56M, to kick her out of the house 2 years ago because I felt unsafe. My mom has been very bad since then, often harassing me about seeing her, and I have multiple times. However, she often threatened my dad with going to court so he would make me see her. My mom has also called me things to my dad over the phone when I've refused to speak to her, such as shitty human being and little cunt. Eventually, in June of last year, my mom ended up getting back on drugs again and ended up asking my dad to pick her up and let her stay over. I refused to let him, and so he said no. That night, the police showed up at our door and told us my mom had been hit by a car. I got onto the phone with my grandma, 70F, over the next couple of days when she was able to visit her. My grandma tried to manipulate me into thinking my dad was at fault because he forced her out of the house and refused to let her stay over. But she also then told me about how she'd pull the plug if my mom didn't look like she'd pull through. Over the next few days, my grandma kept mentioning pulling the plug on my mom as if she was almost itching to finally be rid of her problematic daughter, which made me feel quite upset because she wasn't helping. Eventually, after my grandma forced my dad to take me to see my mom in hospital, my relationship with her seemed to not improve at all, as she was very adamant about me seeing her despite the years of trauma I experienced at her hand. My mom constantly called me and me alone despite the fact she had 4 other children she could see, calling at all hours in the night. When my mom was a bit better in September, she asked when I'd see her again and why I wasn't visiting her despite her brain injury, because I'd stopped visiting her at the hospital because she was getting better. I was still mad at her, and it was quite painful to see her. Like she was, as that was a reminder to me that my mom picked drugs over family yet again, which made me even angrier. After so many weeks of nagging me even when I asked her to stop, in a moment of anger, I blurted out that I'd never see her, and her brain injury was her fault because she chose to get on drugs again. Before I could take it back or say sorry, my mom hung up on me. Not long after that, I got a message from my grandma telling me that I was a cruel and awful human being. This was in September, but it's still eating me up inside, even after somewhat sorting things out with my mom. Am I the asshole? Edit. Just to clear up some confusion, my mom has been to rehab several times, even before my birth, but she has always stopped going and has always ended up back on drugs, no matter who tried to help her. AITA for refusing to give my coworker rides to work. I, M19, work with a friend, also M19. I got him a job at the small company where I worked. When I first recommended him to my boss, it was because I thought it would be a temporary position over the Christmas rush. It was not. My main problem comes from the fact that he doesn't have a driver's license. I was okay with the idea of driving him to and from work for a couple of months, even though he has a habit of always being a couple of minutes late. This isn't a huge deal at our company because we get paid hourly for a job that doesn't have a set time frame. Lately, though, he's been consistently at least 10 minutes late. While it's not a big deal for my boss, I hate sitting in my car in front of his house for that long. I like to get work over with as soon as possible, and while those 10 minutes aren't going to change my life, I'd rather get 10 extra minutes at home than sitting in a car. Today, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to ignore his tardiness. I texted him 20 minutes beforehand to ask if he would be ready in 20 minutes. He said yes, and I knew it was probably a slight exaggeration, so I took my time leaving the house. He got a good extra 5-10 minutes. Then, when I got to his house, I texted him to tell him I was there. No reply. 10 minutes later, he finally appears. Usually, he starts telling me about his day, and I kind of get over my anger, but this time I stuck to what I told myself and let him know that I didn't want to drive him anymore. I wasn't rude. I didn't yell or anything. I just said, "I'm sorry, I don't want to drive you to work anymore because you're always late." He started arguing, saying that it wasn't his fault and he was busy. In the conversation, I also mentioned that things would be different if he wasn't old enough to get a license, and his parents hadn't promised him a car as soon as he got the driver's license. He told me that every time I brought up the driver's license thing, it stresses him out. He kind of phrased it like he thought I brought it up out of concern, which I do every once in a while. But this time it was because he's making me late when he could very well get a driver's license and drive himself. After I made my feelings known, the car ride was quiet. Then, at work, it was quiet. On the way home, it was also quiet. Ich schoker. So, basically, I think he got mad about the fact that I was done waiting around for him. I really don't think I'm in the wrong here, but maybe I'm missing something.
Wibta. If I don't get groceries for my coworker with a special needs kid, TLDR, my coworker with a special needs daughter want me to get snacks for her at the store when I go, because she doesn't like to go in public with her daughter because she cries and tantrums. My first time posting in this subreddit, so sorry if I'm all over the place trying to explain. For some context, I work at a special needs school outpatient clinic as a behavior technician. I work with kids in their classroom during school and stay with them after if they are in the after-school program. One of our kids has been going here for years, and her mom recently started working here too as a behavior technician as well. For my lunch breaks, usually I'll bring a bagel with cream cheese or a bowl of yogurt with granola, etc. It's always something small and light that I'll have time to eat in 30 mins. My coworker, the one who recently started and whose daughter goes here, has seen me with my bagels or snacks and has made comments about me getting stuff for her when I go to Publix. I always talk about how they have pretty good BOGO deals, and that's when I get my snacks. I've always thought it was a semi-joking kind of thing, like she does want me to go but isn't super serious about it. But a couple days ago, during my lunch break, she asked me to let her know when I go to Publix, so she can send me money to get her stuff too. She does make comments about how she never goes anywhere in public with her daughter because she cries or tantrums, and her mom, that she lives with, only goes to the store for groceries sometimes. I understand it's hard to have a kid with special needs or on the spectrum, but I feel like it's not my responsibility to text her whenever I'm going grocery shopping and do her shopping for her. My fiancé agrees and thinks if I do it once, she might start asking me to do it more often. I was thinking about letting her know I'd only be able to do this for her once, but I'm worried she'd still keep asking or not like the boundary I'm setting, especially since we work together and I work with her daughter several times a week. I don't want there to be any tension at work. Webta, if I don't get her snacks as well when I go to Publix for myself. AITA for telling my SEL to stop texting me. I, 31F, have a SIL, who I will be referring to as Opal in this post, who is 10 years old. My husband and I have been together for 16 years, so I've been around for Opal's entire life. As a result, we are very close. Opal texted me the other day and asked me if we could go get mini donuts. This has been something we do together a lot over the years. Nothing new for us. I told her that my pregnancy sickness was bad, so I couldn't do it this time, but when I'm feeling better, we can go. But Opal didn't like that answer, so she kept texting me, spamming emojis and the word please over and over again. I told her firmly that I'm not feeling well, so if she wanted donuts, she'd have to go with her mom or her dad. Again, more whining and complaining. I tried talking to her calmly again and she wasn't having it, so eventually I snapped and told her to stop texting me. Cue the "you hate me" texts and running to her mom crying about me being mean. Mill is mad at me now. She says that I was too harsh with Opal and that I should respect her feelings more as she grows into a young lady. And that I've ruined the lines of communication by asking her to stop texting me. AITA for telling my SEL to stop texting me. AITA for telling my disabled coworker she shouldn't need to lie on dating apps. Update. Since there's been a few questions or comments about various parts of this, I feel obligated to share more info. I apologized immediately after she got huffy with me. I did not just let the matter sit. Whilst she is still a little bit off with me, we have not stopped speaking by any means. Whilst she is a coworker, I would say we are also light friends, given we get dinner together once a week and catch movies together, share hobbies, etc. But I don't know how well our connection would be if we didn't see each other 5 days a week, if that makes any sense. There are people you meet through work that become lifelong friends, and those that are friends throughout their shared workplace but fade after. I just don't know where we stand in terms of that yet. I have stated and continue to point out that I never would have said what I thought if she had not asked me for my opinion. It isn't my business how she dates, and I fully understand, even if I can't relate, that dating with a disability is not easy, and there is a lot of warning signs she needs to be aware of, like people with fetishes and so on, and I recognize that she should not put the information in her bio. However, to not disclose it before the first date, when they are about to meet in person for the first time, is the main point. Lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we met today at work and had lunch together, as we often do, and she brought up the conversation from the other day. Caroline admitted that she wasn't angry with me, but more with herself, because, in her words, I know it isn't right to not tell them if we're going to meet up, but I think it's easier to hide it at first and judge their reaction in person. I know it's not the right thing to do if I really like a guy, but sometimes it's less daunting when they don't know. I explained I understood, and that I didn't judge her. I just hoped she could understand that she asked me what I thought, and I don't like to lie, but I probably should have not said anything. We agreed that it's a very nuanced subject, and each person with disabilities has it different, so it's hard to say what works for each person. Caroline said she would try being more honest in the future with potential partners, and I said it wasn't my place to judge, and I wished her luck with dating in the future. All in all, we both acknowledged we were both assholes and not assholes. It's a difficult subject, and neither of us has a place to say what everyone should or shouldn't do when dating. AITA for telling my disabled coworker she shouldn't need to lie on dating apps. This is a tough one, and I'm genuinely curious to know what people think, so here goes. I have a coworker called Caroline, who, as you can guess, is disabled. She's in a motorized wheelchair and can't really move a lot, but is still very capable of her job. And a lovely, fun person in general, BTW. We were talking on a break about dating and dating apps, how I had never used one and how she did, talking about her experiences. Casual conversation, really, and we were careful not to go into detail or anything, or make each other uncomfortable till this came up. She brought up how she didn't disclose that she was in a wheelchair disabled on her Tinder bio because it tended to scare people off or make people uncomfortable when they chat through the app. This confused me because it's very obvious she is in a wheelchair, and if they went on a date in person, they would find that out very fast. There is absolutely no way she can function in daily life without it, so she can't exactly stash it nearby or something and just sit on a chair during the date. She also told me that she does not tell them at all until they show up to the date and see the fact she is in a wheelchair right in front of them. Anyway, I, maybe stupidly, pointed out that is it not dishonest to not share that she is in a wheelchair on her bio or disclose it to potential partners before meeting for the first time? She told me that everyone on dating apps lies about stuff, so she didn't see the big deal. I told Caroline that it's not like hiding you have a twin or an accent or a particular way of looking. This is something that will heavily impact their dating life with you, and they should be aware of that going in. She's a wonderful person and shouldn't feel awkward about it, and there are plenty of people out there who aren't fazed by their partners being in wheelchairs, so I didn't think she should lie about it. She went off in a huff saying, I didn't understand, but now I'm worried I've somehow been the asshole by telling her this. I know it's not really my business, and I never would have told her this if she didn't ask me, hadn't brought the subject up at all. I just didn't want to lie to her about what I thought, and I tried to be tactful, but I think it blew up in my face. Am I the asshole? Quick clarifications. She asked what I thought when she mentioned how she hid her disability on the app. I'm guessing she saw my surprise in my face when she said that. I would never tell her, or anyone, my opinion on a delicate matter like this if they didn't ask me first.
AITA for refusing to drive 4 hours, so my sister doesn't have to drive through NYC? For context, my parents, 60 MEF, recently got my sister, 19F, a new car so she would be able to drive to FYH at college. However, since buying her car, my parents have not let her drive from Long Island through NYC. One of them would drive her car a couple hours, the other driving another car. They would stop somewhere, then go home together, while my sister would drive the rest of the way to college through rural upstate NY. My parents said they were concerned about her driving past the city, as she was inexperienced. At the time, I thought that this would be a 1 or 2 time thing, and that they probably want to let her not only get used to the car, but also driving through NYC. Flash forward today. My dad was diagnosed with vertigo and is unable to drive at this time. My mom asked me, 22 mess, to do the drive with her instead. However, I objected. This will be the 4th time this has happened, and I would not be compensated in any way, gas money, etc. If this was the first time, I would understand. However, she has had her car for almost a year and drives frequently at school. I asked my mom if this is what my sister wants, or if this is what she wants, advising she, sister, has a nice, new, safe car and in my opinion is more than capable of doing the ride. I feel like it's also a little wasteful with regard to gas and time. My mother responded, saying that she is uncomfortable driving through that area. Then my mom asked if I had driven on the parkways with my sister, because if I have, I would not want her driving through the city. My parents both tried to get my sister to practice driving on parkways so she would be better, more comfortable when doing so. However, she refused to practice, and my parents did not force her. This is another reason why I don't feel responsible to help my sister avoid driving past NYC. Furthermore, I personally feel if this is what my mom truly thinks, my sister should not have received a new car. Additionally, I feel that my parents' plan doesn't provide for my sister to grow as a driver, as there is no exit strategy, so she could eventually drive to school, including through NYC, on her own. In the past, my mom has always emphasized with me that one day she will not be here, and I will have to do things on my own, claiming, "What would you do if I was dead?" However, I feel this sentiment was lost with my sister because she is the youngest. Also, I want to stress that it is my parents who want me to do this, not my sister. She wants to drive on her own but doesn't want to fight my parents in the issue. However, my objection to this request has been met with my parents saying, "This is only 4 hours of your life, and do it for us, not for your sister." I personally feel the request is frivolous, holds my sister back, contradicts the purpose of buying my sister a new car in the first place, given the fear of her driving ability, and warrants compensation to some degree for driving 4 hours. So, AITA?
AITA for not moving back home for sister's baby Otem. I, 26F, moved states for a travel SLP job to make great money and explore normal 20 stuff. Sister 30F got married recently and expecting first baby. She and parents want me to move back home and help W baby. Sister says id gaff about her pregnancy, can't be mad when my niece won't know me. And I'm weird for wanting to live that far away. I haven't even hit 2 wars and I like it here, and I travel back home monthly anyway, so I won't be a stranger to my niece. She'd argue, yell, scream, stonewall me for days. She and Huz took over my lease and ended up never leaving. I also didn't want to have them uproot after making the house their home during engagement, wedding, baby O2, etc. We all agreed it'd make more sense for the newlyweds to get our old childhood home anyway, as opposed to me by myself. Our parents always reiterate that the house is still both of ours. The door is open to both their daughters. All my furniture is there though. TVs, sofas, tables, beds, dressers, etc. With travel work, you just bring yourself, necessities, clothes. Company provides furnished housing. My sister has been picking fights with me weekly over little things. Not answering, returning her call when I'm busy. Every time she wants to talk, vent for HRs. Not wanting to leave TX. As a person learning to set boundaries, my family doesn't accept it well when I finally enforce a boundary. She's now saying I've been disrupting her peace her whole pregnancy, and she'll never forget it. But she is picking all these fights. She ended that phone call with BTWPLS, come get all your shit out the junk room and put it in storage or something. It'll be the baby room. I said, I'll just get all my things, and I do mean everything since I just got my own place in TX. I flew in Mon night, began the move Tuesday morning. I furnished the whole house while I stayed there, so all furniture, appliances, decor are mine, no question. She called from work demanding I wait until Saturday when she is off because I don't feel comfortable with you moving things around at the house while I'm not there. You could take something that's not yours, and there aren't any cameras. I felt like I trusted them to live on top of my stuff, use my dishes, appliances, sleep on my beds, replace my things theirs in dressers, closets, move my stuff wherever they wanted for 2 years. I was offended, and to not be able to get my things sat knowing I leave Sunday is asinine. Her hus even told me she throws away my things all the time. They argued once BC he told her that's wrong. I told her I know not to touch anywhere her things are, and I know what belongs to me and what doesn't. She started screaming at me. Why can't you ever just say okay when I tell you something? Even my parents said she was being unreasonable. She didn't talk to me the rest of my spring break. I left our house and spent the week at my parents'. She posted about cutting family off that disturb your peace on social media.
ATA for not chipping in for my friend's Uber after he felt uncomfortable sleeping at my place. I, 26M, have been friends with Josh, 26 since college. We were basically inseparable then, but only stayed in touch intermittently since graduation. Recently, he moved to NYC, where I live, and we have been hanging out like old times. Josh mainly comes near me because there's some bars we like to go to there. I've offered to go to his neighborhood. He lives in a different borough, but he says there's no fun places there. The only issue is he has to leave pretty early because the trains get wonky at night and Ubers are expensive. I've offered to let him crash, but he says he didn't want to be a burden. Anyway, last Saturday, Josh wanted to stay out and asked if he could crash. I told him, of course. We went back to my studio. He knew it was a studio, and he asked if I had any pajamas he could borrow. I told him no because 1, I genuinely own no pajamas, and 2, I have some sweatpants, but I'm weird about people wearing my clothes. Can't explain why, just am. A germ thing. Anyway, I suggested Josh he just sleep in his boxers, and he got annoyed. He said he wouldn't have stayed if he had known I'd be so accommodating, and I said all I offered him was a couch to crash on. He Ubered home, and it was about $100. The next day, he Venmo requests me $30 and says it's because he would have gone home earlier if he known I was going to be weird. I denied the request, and then when I tried to follow up on some previously made plans, he's been distant and has apparently trash-talked me to a mutual friend. ATA for telling my coworker to freshen up for an important event. Throwaway account since the people involved use Reddit. I, 32 Mad, work at a company with the occasional events. I take them as chances to network with people from other companies and so on. My coworker, 33 who we'll call Ben, is pretty scruffy, showing up to work in the same outfit he wore the previous day and even sleeping at his desk sometimes. I've never interacted with him one-on-one per se, but we've been on the same projects, and I'm friendly with him. Here is where the issue is. Recently, there was a company event, and for once, Ben didn't really participate or speak about it beforehand, so most of us assumed he wasn't going. I didn't expect him to come, of course, But he did in the most unprofessional outfit. He was wearing wrinkled clothes and colors that didn't match, like he rolled out of bed. He walked up to my circle and we locked eyes, and I joked that he should have freshed up a bit to an event like this, and there were some chuckles, but everyone was mostly silent. He soon walked away, and my other coworker pulled me aside and told me that I was way out of line, and her and my colleagues think that I shouldn't have spoken about his attire, especially since I don't know him very well. I thought I was just making a joke to lighten the mood. I haven't seen him since, and he's been actively avoiding me. Mostly everyone in my circle is expecting me to apologize to Ben, AITA, for making a joke. Update. I understand how the joke wasn't a joke at all now, and I'll be apologizing to Ben at work tomorrow. AITA for not giving neat father-in-law money? My 66-year-old father-in-law had 3 children, each within a year and a half from the next. 1 girl, my wife, 2 younger boys. He was abusive and misogynistic during his marriage, and when my wife was around 6, he lost his job, under unknown circumstances, and left his wife and kids. He moved in with his mother. His father was deceased decades prior, and lived with her, being cared and fed by her and her pension. He never paid alimony, and didn't provide any support whatsoever. He would see his children only occasionally when they visited their grandma. Grandma, took out of pity, and because she thought he was mentally ill, we all came to a conclusion he is. My wife's grandma passed away around 14 years ago, and my father-in-law did nothing to improve. His older brother took care of the funeral, but lives in another state and has no interest in helping him. He is a horrible person, although he actually works, and he wants his brother to die so he gets the house. My father-in-law just lived off her savings. My wife had a tricky relationship with him. He is unstable and seems to have some sort of intellectual disability, albeit not aggressive. He's thin and very weak. My wife doesn't bother visiting him for the past 5 years since he said I was a bad male model for my son and that he needed to be raised by a real man, whatever that means. Last week he called and asked to see her in person. She asked what it was about. He refused to elaborate. She called her brothers, and they said his money was gone, and they have been secretly helping for a while but can't anymore. Both brothers are also deadbeats and have only menial temp jobs every once in a while. My wife went there, and he said he was now in debt and needed the equivalent of a $2,000. But he said he wanted a response by email. He is a coward and is afraid to talk to me. When she told me that I wrote an email that basically said I'd give the money if he did 3 things. 1. Showed me his bank balance and everything he owes, credit card balances, everything. I want to know how deep the problem is. 2. He tells me all of his income sources for the past decade. 3. He comes up with a plan to get a new source of income, either disability checks, which he is entitled but he refuses to, or a job. He also said many times he refuses to ever work again, never elaborates on why. He ignored my email and called my wife, asking her to convince me to give him the money. She asked if he would do what I asked. He was rude and said he wouldn't. My mother-in-law talked with my wife, said she pities him and thinks he's mentally ill and mentally challenged, and that I should be convinced to pay a monthly allowance to him. I have 0 debts, but currently what I earn is what I spend, and we have no luxuries. I have some savings, but that's for our future and my son's college. Now what?
AITA. For telling my BIL that his sister is a stranger to me, which my own sister said was insensitive to his childhood experiences. For anonymity, I will call my sister Emma, her husband Chris, and Chris's sister Zoe. Chris and Zoe went into the system and were separated at a young age. Chris signed up for an online DNA registry so possible relatives could reach out, which led to Zoe finding him. Based on the reasoning she gave for reaching out now, I have serious suspicions as to what her real intentions are for reaching out. But even giving her the benefit of the doubt, it's been only a few months and is still too soon for me. I will say that Zoe seems nice, but it hasn't been long. I don't know what kind of person she is or how stable this relationship is, which is why I am not comfortable introducing my children to her beyond shared holiday events or having them interact with Zoe beyond that capacity. Emma and Chris are pushing me to get the kids more involved, specifically shared auntie days and play dates with the cousins since me and Zoe's kids are similar in age. I tried to be polite, but my sister and BL keep finding ways around it, so I decided to be truthful. I explained to Emma and Chris why I was not comfortable with my kids interacting with Zoe beyond special occasions, which led to a disagreement. They said that they want Zoe and her kids to feel included by the entire family, especially given Zoe's circumstances. My children have already experienced trauma related to losing family members. What if I let them get attached to their auntie and cousins, BIL and his sister decide to have a falling out, and then Zoe and her kids suddenly vanish from our lives? I have to be cautious for my kids' sake and consider how they will be affected. I told Emma and Chris that I will reconsider if it is proven with time that this connection is stable and honest on Zoe's end. But frankly, Zoe is a stranger, and the needs of my kids come before a stranger and her kids. Chris asked me to leave, and Emma later berated me over the phone. She said it was my right to have opinions, but what I said was incredibly insensitive to Chris's childhood experience. She says I have shown a lack of empathy towards Chris and should consider how he feels growing up without family, and now having the family he found reject Zoe and him by extension. I will not apologize for setting a boundary of putting my kids first. However, is Emma right that the way I said it was unacceptable and my statement was insensitive to Chris's childhood experience? AITA.
AITA wife wants 100% in case of untimely end. I am wanting to earmark 5% of just my $1 life insurance policy for my sister. Here's the details. I, 35 mid, and my wife, 33F, are family planning with our second child due in a month. I have $500K in life insurance through work, and we'll be adding another $500K in private coverage. Our net worth is just below 1M with about $100K equity in our house, $200K in my retirement, $50K liquid. She has about $250K in retirement and $100K liquid, plus stuff. My sister, 32F, has been married for a few years with a stepson. They would like to family plan for more, but want a house first. It seems to me they are pretty much paycheck to paycheck. I don't foresee them getting a house soon. $50K would make a material difference in them getting a down payment. I might add this as a stipulation to get our money. Wife says our 2 kids would need everything I can leave them. Wife makes about $100 and $150K, though probably on that lower end if I weren't in the picture. Last detail, I have an older brother, 37M, who is single and not family planning, so he can get my video games and miscellaneous sorry buddy. So I would like to update my will to allocate 5% of my insurance policy to my sister. WIBTA? Update. A few things. Lots of people seem shocked at this scenario. Everyone should take a small amount of time to realize that everyone dies at some point, and your wishes should be known. Notes to loved ones that are easily discoverable are good ideas too. It would be better to help now and not rely on dying for a windfall. I'll try and figure out what that looks like. It's not just giving over some money, obviously. This is not some knockdown dragout. Wife and I are great, just seeing what other people say, which seems like life insurance is to ensure financial monies for those that rely on your income. Easiest takeaway is just add $50K to the new policy. Problem solved. Nearly every reply is downvoted into oblivion. Thanks.
AITA for refusing to go see my husband's school musical. I, 40s F, and my husband, 40s M, are in an argument regarding an incident that happened with my daughter's musical the previous weekend. My daughter, 15F, was at a musical at her high school and had been in practices for months leading up to her performance. She performed a total of 4 times once for parent night and 3 different showings from the weekend. I have gone to all of the rehearsals, pickups from practice, and had volunteered to work during the intermission shifts and pre-shows for the musical boosters group. I only asked that her father and 2 brothers attend one show. They came to the afternoon showing, and at the intermission he mentioned that he wanted to head home because he had not been feeling well. Plus, he was feeling a little hungry and tired. I told him that the second act was only about 35 minutes and would be short, and I thought it would be nice for everyone to stay to show support our daughter. He decided to leave anyway and took our sons with him. I was beyond upset, and we had an argument about it. I said that it was very selfish to leave and not be there for her daughter when she walked out and everyone else's family had stayed and was giving hugs and flowers, and when she came out, it would only be me again. Fast forward to this weekend, and my husband asked if we all wanted to go see the musical at the school where he teaches. I said I didn't want to go and sit through someone else's whole musical when he had not bothered to sit through his own daughter's. He told me that I'm wrong for my opinion and that I was being hateful. He then asked my daughter if she wanted to go with him, he would take her, but it had to be to the matinee on Sunday because he didn't want to drive at night. She has voice lessons on Sunday, so she doesn't want to miss her voice lessons. Instead, he said if she doesn't want to go, he'll take her grandmother instead with him. He is saying that I am being unreasonable, and I said that he is not being a supportive father. AITA? Update. Thank you for all the responses. I appreciate the suggestions and comments. This behavior from my husband has been escalating the past few years, and I suppose I wanted to have some validation that I wasn't overreacting. I also understand that this reflects more than just one situation and shows how fractured the relationship is between my husband, myself, and my kids. I've been trying to get us into the family therapy for a few years now without success, and now I suppose I have to think about what I want for my future and my kids' future. Thank you once again for all the advice. AITA for not personally texting my coworker that I wouldn't be riding with her. I recently started a job where my company provides accommodation, so my coworkers and I live in the same compound. I'm in training with 3 others, Anna, Julia, and Ellie. Anna and Julia are the only ones with cars. Anna offered to drive me and Ellie to and from work, saying it didn't make sense for us to Uber since she was going the same way. We offered multiple times to pitch in for gas, but she refused, so we'd occasionally buy her coffee or lunch to thank her. She would text in our group chat in the morning when she was about to leave so Ellie and I could meet her downstairs. We usually left at 7:15 a.m., and this arrangement worked fine for 3 weeks. One morning, Julia texted the group at 7 a.m. asking for help and then offered a ride. I replied, "Sure, I'll join Julia today," and she said she'd leave at 7:20. When I went downstairs, I saw Anna's car still parked, which was odd. Julia called her twice. No answer. I called once. No answer. On my second call, she picked up. I asked if everything was okay since we saw her car still there, and she just said, yes, see you there," then hung up. Minutes later, she texted the group asking if we had left, even though I had just told her on the phone that we had. When I confirmed, she replied, "Thank you for replying," which, in hindsight, felt passive-aggressive. When she arrived at work, she immediately started yelling at me in front of everyone. She was furious that I didn't even text in the group, and that she waited there like a stupid person. I told her I had texted at 7 a.m., but she insisted I hadn't. Julia pulled up the chat to prove I did, but Anna snapped back that I should have personally messaged her. Anna, I won't be joining you today. I will go with Julia. Then she said, I was good while I provided Uber services, but the moment I'm not needed, I don't even deserve a text. I was shocked. She was the one who offered the rides in the first place, and now she was making it sound like I had been using her. I reminded her that she always refused gas money and that we often bought her coffee or food as a thank you. But she doubled down, acting as if I had disrespected her. The rest of the day, she ignored us, barely participated in training, and when it was time to leave, she suddenly said, Okay, girls, I'm leaving if you want to join. Ellie and I felt too uncomfortable after her outburst, so we politely declined and went with Julia instead. It's been a week now. She acts normal during training, but avoids us during breaks and leaves without saying goodbye. She hasn't brought it up again, and honestly, I don't feel like I did anything wrong. Ida for not personally texting her, Aida for refusing to cave into my father's wishes for my wedding. This is going to be a long one. Me, 37F, moved out of my country 10 years ago, while my father and his part of the family stayed in the country. My sister also lives there with her family. My mom moved with me. I am getting married this year, and I wanted to have a family wedding that included my dad's side of the family because that's who I grew up with, and I have a lot of fond memories with them and wanted to celebrate. My whole family is not religiously observant. We just do the regular functions. Baptisms, First Communion, out of Catholic tradition. My dad, the whole time I've been engaged, has been pushing for me to get married in church. Hard no for both me and the fiancé. Then he said we could get married in a civil hall kind of church. Also no, because we'd like our ceremony to be outside in the open. He helped me find a venue with a really pretty gazebo where they do legal, unstark, symbolic ceremonies, and that is the place where I will be getting married and having the reception. I came back today to my country to finalize some things, and in the car, he tried again asking if I didn't want to get married in church. No thank you, that is not what I want. And then at the other civil hall. No, we already have a venue and you helped me choose it, find it. Then he got mad saying my fiancé is the one who's pushing these decisions as if I didn't have any individual autonomy. My mom is pissed at him and says he can't get over the fact he's not in control. I'm just so fucking tired of this petty argument. Am I the asshole? Edit. The wedding is paid by my fiancé and myself. My dad just helped with the initial deposit that I paid him half back for. We'll pay the other half in May.
AITA for the way I told my wife she needs to be able to communicate during a potential emergency situation? I, 34M, am at work when I get a text that our dog is bleeding, and my wife doesn't know why. She asks me to take a look at it when I get home for lunch. Not knowing how serious it is, I try to call her 8 times, along with 2 text messages saying to answer your phone. After 15 minutes of trying, I leave work to head home. Apparently this was an overreaction. She is not home when I get there, so I call her again. She finally picks up and tells me she is at the thrift store. I tell her I am at home looking for the dog. She comes home immediately. I check the dog, and he is fine. It was just a tiny scrape she didn't see. I ask her why she didn't answer her phone, and she says it's because it was in her front hoodie pocket and she didn't feel it go off. After a couple minutes, I ask her if she has since changed the ringtone so that she will hear it in another potential emergency situation. She says no. I tell her she needs to fix that in case this happens again. This is what started the argument. According to her, I was nagging her and talking to her like an idiot child, and that I was demanding she be on Beck and call 24/7 to serve me. I got angry at this point. I tell her she needs to be able to answer the phone when she texts me something that could be an emergency. Again, she accuses me of talking to her like an idiot. I tell her no, I'm talking to her like she's an adult who doesn't know how to communicate. And from there, it turned into a shouting match. So yeah, was I the asshole when I told her she needs to communicate better? Was I nagging her like she thinks I was? She says, it's not about what I said, but how I said it. I don't think I was nagging her. She thinks I was. And when I tell her I wasn't nagging her, she says, I'm just wrong. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid she will get mad at me if I ask her a question in a tone that she doesn't like. Ida for not letting my dad's GF walk through the front door that's in my room when she was upset. I, 23 Mads, live with my dad, his GF, when my dad hasn't kicked her out after one of their spats, and my youngest brother for the past 3 or 4 years. We recently moved into a new house around August of 2023, and my new room is like a mudroom, but we only use it as a bedroom for me. But it has the front door, which is fine BC. My family only uses the back door, really, and I can just grab whatever food or packages are delivered and distribute them. Anyways, my dad's GF, let's call her Stacy, 34F, and my dad always get into arguments when he's drunk. We have a small house, so she has nowhere to go but outside when they argue or their closet. Well, sometimes my dad is on the back porch drinking with my uncles, and even though they will ignore her when she walks through them to go around the house to sit on the front steps, she would rather go through the front door. Well, since the front door is in my room, Stacy needs to ask, since you know, privacy and things and BC, I would have to move a bunch of things and leave the door and screen door unlocked and open for her, and she always does ask. I normally let her, but a few months ago, when this incident happens, she asks me and I said no. BC, I just didn't want to have to move all my stuff, and I was stressed and wanted to have personal convos with my friends without worrying she's snooping. She likes to eavesdrop and had stolen my sister's GF's things when my sis and her GF lived with us. Also, I have anxiety of leaving the front door unlocked and open, PTSD things, which increased with my stressed state. Anyways, when I said no, she cursed me out and said I was being inconsiderate before storming out of my room and almost slamming the door. My friend said I wasn't an asshole and that it was my room, so I have the right to say no, and it's just my people-pleasing personality making me feel guilty. Yet Stacy didn't talk to me for almost a month after, and our relationship is still strained. I'm internally torn. So tell me, Reddit, am I the asshole? AITA. My mom pushed me to go out to eat then, pushed the bill off on me. Today, after I finished work, I get off 2 hours early on Wednesdays, I was supposed to go grocery shopping for my mom. When I stopped at home, I went to her house. She told me she hadn't received her new credit card in the mail yet, which she gets every few months because she's paranoid about someone stealing her card info. That usually means I end up updating all of her online payments because she doesn't know how to use the internet very well. When I got there, she mentioned the missing card, which was fine because she has 3 others. However, she didn't want to use them for groceries. That was okay with me. I could go another day if she preferred. Then, she asked me to take her to Chili's. Now, when my mom says, take me, it's understood that she usually pays. She's financially well off, my dad left her comfortable when he passed, and she hasn't worked in over 35 years. So, whenever we go out, she covers the bill, unless it's something specifically for her, in which case either my brother or I pay. Even my grown nephews will pay when it's for her, but otherwise, my mom always takes care of the bill. I'm not being entitled, it's just how it's always been. I always thank her, especially since I'm not doing well financially and appreciate her help. Before we left, I told her I didn't have money for dinner since my refund check hadn't cleared yet. NFCU takes 2-3 days to release funds, and I get paid on Friday. She insisted on going out anyway, and dinner was great. When the bill came, my mom handed it to me. I didn't have enough money, so I ended up using a cash app loan to cover the meal. My mom then made me feel guilty for asking her to leave the tip because I only had $30 left after paying for the food. She ended up leaving 19 $1 bills she had in her wallet. I told her to keep the ones, and I'd tip the waiter next time since I go there often and know him well. After leaving, I was upset and speaking quietly. My mom noticed and got angry, saying I was acting up. I explained that I didn't have the money and still needed gas and food for my kid before Friday. She yelled, saying that when she and my dad were together, they never fought over money. I clarified I wasn't fighting, just explaining that the situation wasn't ideal. My mom has always been hard to talk to, and I've noticed myself getting louder when I'm upset lately, but I didn't yell this time. I just explained the situation. She responded that I clearly had the money since I paid for the meal, and that she always covers the bill, so what was the big deal? I tried to explain that the issue was me telling her I didn't have the money, and she still pushed for us to go out after I said I couldn't afford it. I assumed that since she knew I was short on funds, she would cover the bill. I realize now that I shouldn't have assumed that. So, AATA for getting upset with my mom for pushing the bill onto me when I clearly told her I didn't have it?
AITA for telling my husband to book a hotel for us while we attend my SEL's wedding, rather than share accommodations with his family. My husband and I are going to be traveling soon to attend his sister's wedding, along with our 1-year-old son. The plan was that we would land at his parents' place and attend one of the wedding ceremonies there. A few days after that, there's another wedding reception in my SIL's soon-to-be husband's city. My in-laws plan to book a few train compartments for the entire family and an Airbnb for the stay there, 2 to 3 days. I really don't want to be in a confined space with my in-laws for that long, especially with my son. My in-laws and I used to be cordial with each other until my son was born. A few weeks after delivery, my MIL and SIL visited us to help. All they did was just find any opportunity to hold him, regardless of whether he was asleep or in my arms, criticizing me for being too clingy with him, when I would put my foot down and basically started locking myself in my room with him, lament how poor my cooking was, and how sorry they felt for their poor son brother who had to endure it, until both my husband and I had had enough, and my husband hinted heavily that they had overstayed their welcome. Since then, I get hounded for not sending enough pictures and videos of him, and how I dress him. I'm so grateful we're far enough away that we see them rarely. I told my husband a couple of days ago that I'd rather we just fly from his parents' place to the other city and just stay at a hotel while we attend the second ceremony. My husband said that would make us look snobbish, that he himself wasn't over the moon about the whole itinerary, but it was a family event and we should be with family. The fact that he wasn't into it frustrated me even more because, we're all making ourselves uncomfortable for what then? We got into an argument. His mother and sister's stay got rehashed, and I told him he was choosing to make me uncomfortable rather than potentially risk his family being affronted. AITA?
AITA for not inviting my pregnant sister-in-law to my wedding? My partner and I are due to get married soon. My brother David has always been viewed as the favorite in my family, and so is his wife Jill. I, on the other hand, am always viewed as the problem in my mother's eyes. A few years ago, we celebrated my stepbrother's wedding with our family. David, Jill, my fiancé, and I stayed in an apartment and had breakfast together the next morning, and all was seemingly great. That was until later that afternoon when I received a call from my mom saying Jill was at her house in tears because I insulted her appearance at the wedding. I have zero recollection of this, but my fiancé was with me the whole night and was adamant that I did not say anything. Plus, Jill showed no signs of being upset or annoyed with me at any point. I was disappointed that my mom did not ask me and jumped to conclusions that I was in the wrong. I apologized to Jill, and that was seemingly the end of it. Our relationship with Dave and Jill has been icy since then, and Jill has made no effort to engage with my fiancé on our upcoming wedding at family events. At Christmas, when we were visiting my mom and stepdad, Dave and Jill both arrived and announced that they are expecting a baby, first grandkid in the family, and that's its due on our wedding day. After a few drinks, my stepdad made a remark that our big day is now about Dave and Jill as well. I spoke to my mom about this, and she assured me that this wouldn't be the case and that they would be celebrating us. My stepdad disagreed again. Our wedding day is really important to us and our friendships. We have a 2-day wedding. The first day is a ceremony and a meal in an upmarket restaurant for 30 of our closest friends and immediate family. The next day is a party for all our other friends and extended family. David and Jill are invited to both days, but given the long day and that she is due to give birth on the day, we did not have the space to accommodate Jill for the evening meal. She also said she didn't want to go originally as she doesn't like that kind of food but has changed her stance since on wanting to attend. My mom has now demanded that we invite Jill to the meal and has been pretty aggressive towards me and my fiancé. We have stated that we don't have the space, my fiancé close friends and stepmom aren't going, and that we don't think it's suitable. The ceremony at the meal is very intimate, and we only want our closest friends there. My mom has now said that they need to be there for Jill in case she goes into labor, and so she needs to be at the venue. I should point out that Jill also has family, albeit they are a 1-hour flight away, and not all of our family are going to the meal. We are paying for the wedding ourselves, too. I just feel like this should be a day to celebrate me and my to-be wife, but my family have made it clear that they want it to be about Jill, who has made it clear she doesn't even like us. So please help, AITA? Thanks. AITA for refusing to let my partner decide how I have to spend my gift? I live with my girlfriend, and we have been together for just under 4 years. My mom recently decided to give me $1,800. I had decided to save the majority of it, but spend some, if it, on things for myself. I decided to get some new clothes, some new books, video games, and then a night away for my GF and I. After this, I would be left with around $1,300 to save. My girlfriend and I went to my mom's house at the weekend, and she mentioned the money. At this point, I hadn't told my girlfriend, so it came as a shock to her. When we got home, she asked what I was doing with the money. I told her what I had planned. She mentioned that we were saving for a house within the next 4 or 5 years, so mentioned the money would be good to go towards that. I reiterated that I had already told her how it would be spent. I said part of the money saved will go into my savings account specifically for the house, but that the majority would go into my general savings account. She said I'm not taking it seriously saving up for a house, but I just pointed out that I have been regularly putting away money all year, and will continue to do so. But this was a gift, and I'd like to be able to actually enjoy it. She said if I wasn't putting it towards a house, then it could pay for our holiday next March. I said no, and stated again what it was for. I reminded her that the money is a gift to me, yet she thinks she can say exactly how I should be spending it. She just said she was thinking of us, but I reminded her that the money is paying for us to go away for the night. So it's not like she's getting nothing, but she's being quite entitled. She just said she should be involved in the decision, but I disagreed, as the money was a gift to me. She just said I wasn't treating her like a partner, and that we're supposed to be a couple, so she should be considered when I'm spending the money, but I just again said she was being entitled, and quite selfish. AITA for deciding how to spend the gift I was given?
AITA for walking away when I was asked to apologize. For context, I used to be best friends a guy who we'll call Brad and his girlfriend who we'll call Diane. Brad, Diane, and I used to all eat lunch together along with a few other friends. I am usually very chatty and social, but my grandpa had been in the hospital the past few days, and I wasn't as chipper as usual. So, when Diane asked me to go with her to throw something away, I said yes so I could explain the situation to her. This wasn't abnormal for us to leave the guys for a few minutes, as this was usually a chance for us to talk without them. When we were away from the guys, I apologized for not talking as much and explained how my grandpa was in the hospital. She stopped me mid-sentence and said, "Do you like my shirt?" She was wearing one of those black shirts that was tie-dyed with a bleach heart. I, confused, responded with, yeah, I guess. Can I get back to talk about my grandpa who's in the hospital now? She proceeded to sigh before saying, I guess. By this point, we had finally gotten back to Brad and the rest of the group. They saw we were obviously upset and asked what had happened. Before we could explain, Diane had stormed off, leaving me to explain the situation. After I had said what had happened, Brad asked, "Why can't you just say I'm sorry?" It's important to note that until this point, I had been apologizing to Diane no matter if I was wrong or not, simply because I thought it was better than fighting. However, after some much-needed therapy, I decided to stop doing that and had determined I shouldn't have to always apologize when things aren't my fault. After he said this, I was almost in tears because I felt like all those months of progress were going down the drain. Here's where I may be the asshole. Instead of staying to explain why I was upset just like Diane, I stormed away without explaining or clearing things up. As I walked away, I could hear Brad telling his friend, "What did I do?" which just made me more upset. So AITA for walking away instead of explaining why I was upset? AITA for telling my husband's ex to keep her jealousy to herself? This is 100% a throwaway. So if I don't reply, assume I lost access. I, 30th, am newly married to my husband, Rick, 30th. So Il tried to explain the backstory and relationships, but I suck at typing so sorry ahead of time. Rick was raised with Maddie, 30th. My Mile, 50th, and Maddie's mom were best friends since they were babies. They dated back in high school, but it didn't work out. They did, however, remain close friends. I probably should note that Maddie ended up marrying my older BL 5 years ago. So on to now. Rick and I have spent the last year wedding planning and doing all of the traditional events that comes with that. It's been an incredibly stressful time, but being my SEAL, Maddie was at almost everything. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. I like Maddie, but it seemed like every passing day she would get angrier with me. This led all the way up to our rehearsal dinner when she started making comments in a joking manner. I could have been his wife. I would have looked stunning next to him at the altar. This continued most of the way through our meal. I admit I was irritated and not enjoying myself because of it. When she jokingly asked Rick why they broke up again, I decided to speak up and told her to keep her jealousy to herself. She acted like she didn't know what I was talking about. I told her I've had to listen to her little remarks at the rehearsal for my wedding, and I was tired of it. She shut up, but my BIL and Mill kept looking at me funny for the rest of the event. When Rick and I got back from our honeymoon 2 days ago, my Mill had a talk with me about how that was incredibly rude, and that I owe Maddie an apology. I'm starting to wonder if I was actually in the wrong here. Rick says I was justified, but Mile and Bill are still upset with me over at AITA for not inviting my in-laws to stay in our home. Several years ago, I was a full-time caretaker for my husband, who was awaiting back surgery, and my mother, who was in palliative care with dementia. In addition, I worked full-time. It was a lot, so I used the services of someone who cleaned every few weeks. After my husband's surgery, his sisters decided to visit, and I welcomed them into our home. After their visit, I learned that they'd entered parts of our home that were not open to visitors, looked through things, and commented about its cleanliness. Granted, the private spaces were not as tidy as the public parts of our home, but I was doing the best I could. This was especially hurtful to my husband because there is shame associated with this topic in their family. Fast forward, and we have a family event coming up. My husband has suggested that the family stay with us, and based on the last experience, I said no. I'm in school and have a full-time job, and he may say he's going to clean, but he won't and will become angry with me because it's not done. I suggested they stay at a hotel, even if we pay, because I don't want the stress associated with the visit, because our standards don't align. He's pretty upset, but AITA, for not letting Mill help with my confinement and insulting my hubby in the process. I, 24F, just had my first baby with my husband, 27M. And in Nigeria, we have this tradition called Omugwo, where either of our moms comes to help out after childbirth. I wanted my mom to come because we have a better dynamic, but my MIL is way more traditional, and we just don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, especially household stuff. Lately, I've been really struggling postpartum. I don't like being touched. I'm super sensitive to light and sound, and everyone has respected that, except my MIL. We've always had a decent relationship, just not when it comes to how things should be done around the house. A few days ago, she called to ask when she should come, and I politely told her I had already asked my mom. She lost it, saying that's not how things are done, that she needed to bond with the baby, that I was being disrespectful, lazy, and keeping her from her grandchild. I corrected her and told her she would see the baby, just not with living with us. She immediately called my husband, but thankfully he backed me up, saying it was my choice since I was the one who gave birth. Fast forward to the day my mom was supposed to arrive, she was already being so supportive, even telling me I should just let MIL come for peace sake, and they could be here together. But I stood my ground to many people in the house. Not even a minute after my mom arrived, Mill showed up with Phil and her bags ready to move in. I told her no, she wasn't staying here. She completely lost it, yelling that I was a bad DIL, an even worse mother, and that I wasn't giving my child what he deserved. At that point, I snapped. I told her I didn't want her here because all she'd do was criticize everything I was doing wrong, while giving her son a pass for being lazy, just like she did with her husband and her other son. I told her she wasn't going to come into my home and make me feel like a maid, and that I deserved to be surrounded by people who actually love me, not people who pick and choose when to care. I also said she wasn't going to use my child as a second chance at parenting because she failed the first time. The second the words left my mouth, I regretted them. My husband, who had been so supportive, just looked so hurt and walked away. Mile looked like she swallowed a whole duck, and Phil, while understanding that I didn't want her there, said I didn't have to be so harsh. Now, my SIL and in-laws are blowing up my phone, and honestly, I don't even know what to do next. AITA for not telling my family I got an internship abroad until after I was accepted. I am a 21YO university student and got accepted to a fellowship abroad this summer. I didn't tell my mother till after I got accepted, and she was really angry. I didn't tell her before applying. I didn't want to tell her before because last summer I had an interview for a summer internship and she gave me a hard time. She stood at the door for the online interview and then afterwards proceeded to tell me everything I did wrong and how I wouldn't get accepted. When I got annoyed, she said it was constructive criticism, but when asked what was constructed about it, she said she didn't want to talk anymore. I am usually very receptive to feedback, but this was just mean. Anyways, this time around I did not want her to get in my head, so I didn't tell her. When I finally did, she told me she was not happy about me going, as she said I need to come home and spend time with the family and take care of her. My grandma then got involved siding with her, and they both were calling me selfish and ungrateful. I tried to argue back saying this was a good opportunity for me that won't come around again. I said I was proud of myself for this achievement, even if they weren't, and they called me rude. I said, if I was selfish, then why could I visit every weekend to see my family and a 2-hour travel time and provide money to my mother when she needed it? I was really annoyed they kept calling me selfish, so I calculated how much money I had given just over the last 2 years and a half, which totaled to around $12,000. I sent this number in a text, and my mother was fuming. She said I was punishing her for her saying I shouldn't do the fellowship and that I was holding it over her head because I gave her money. My grandmother said that it was nothing that I gave her money because my mother works hard and everyone gives money to help their parents because of all the money paid to raise them. I said it's different because I am still a student and make minimum wage on the side. Side note, I never asked or was paid back any money I gave to my mother. After this, I have not spoken to my mother, nor has she spoken to me for almost a month now. I went home, to which she blanked me when I tried to greet her and ignored my attempts to talk to be mature and try and talk it out. I got another internship abroad this summer right before the initial one, so we'll be gone for 3 and 4 months, 1st May, July, 2nd August, doing them back to back. I don't plan to tell her AITA, for refusing to share my streaming after my friend canceled hers to save money. I have subscriptions to a few streaming services that I pay for myself. My friend used to have her own accounts, but a few months ago she told me she was canceling them to save money. She joked that she could just use mine instead since I already pay for them. At first, I thought she was kidding, but after she canceled her subscriptions, she kept asking for my login info. I told her I wasn't comfortable sharing since I pay for these services myself and don't want anyone messing with my recommendations or getting me locked out for too many users. She called me stingy and said that since I wouldn't even notice her using it, I should just let her. I still said no, and now she's upset and said I'm being selfish over something that costs me nothing extra. But I feel like she made the choice to cancel her accounts and shouldn't expect me to cover for her. AITA for refusing to share my streaming accounts. AITA for telling my mother-in-law if she keeps asking about our baby's name, she won't see her for an additional week every time she asks. Update. Not sure how to update my post, so I hope this works. First, to answer some questions, this is my AmItheA-hole's 4th grandchild. However, they do not see the other 3, but maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I am not sure why my BIL and SIL live about 4 hours away and do not allow the kids to come down here. Second, my husband does support my decision. However, he struggles a lot with setting boundaries with his family. He was raised with the they are blood, so their actions are okay mentality. This is something we are working on. And yes, his family, not just his parents, take full advantage of him. He is a teddy bear. And this is not the first time since we have been together that a family member has ran right over him. He did end up cutting the other family member off, but I don't see him doing that to his mother. On to the update. After waking up this morning and reading all your comments, I sat down with my husband and showed him this post. After he read all the comments, something clicked in his head. He agreed this behavior is not okay and apologized for not being firmer with his mother. We have decided we will not be telling anyone when I go into labor, except for a trusted friend who will be taking care of our dogs and horses, and will inform my LD team no one is to come in under any circumstances. He also sent his mom the following message. Mom, after the conversation we had yesterday, your behavior has gotten out of hand. While I understand you are excited to meet our baby, your actions have shown we cannot trust you around her until we receive an apology and see your actions have changed. You will not be meeting her. And from this point on, wifey will not be communicating with you. If you have anything else to say, you will say it to me and me only. I am very proud of him for standing up for his family. We will see how things progress. But at this point, I am checking out and focusing on myself and baby. Thanks everyone for the support and advice. AITA for not loving my sister's children the way she and her husband do. TLDR. On a recent visit to see my sister and her 3 children, told me she was hurt and disappointed that I don't love her children in the same manner that she and her husband do. I told her this was an unreasonable expectation. AITA, the past 2 years, I, 43F, have traveled to spend a week with my sister, 40F, and her family. She and her husband and have 3 young boys, a 3.5-year-old and twin 2.5-year-olds. It's about a 6-hour flight, so it's not a trip I can make on a regular basis. When I visited last February, it was a great trip. Good mix of sister time, hanging out with the kids and her husband, a night out, a house party, just all around enjoyable. Her husband is great and is a stay-at-home dad. My sister works from home and is a successful businesswoman. I was genuinely excited to go visit again last month. I'm not a kid person, and I never have been. My partner and I are intentionally childless, and we love our quiet, low-key life. I'm good with kids. I'll play with them with their toys. I'll crawl around on the floor with them. I'm down to do whatever goofy thing they're into, but for only about 2 hours at a time. Then I have to tap out and recharge. I'm also not great with the constant noise kids make. I understand that's just what they do, but I've got a low threshold for it, especially when it's the full-blown meltdowns. For the first 3-4 days I was at my sister's, the 3 kids were screaming and crying nearly every 25 minutes. So when the temper tantrum started, I'd go outside or at least leave the room. At one point, the kids and husband are out of the house, and my sister took the opportunity to tell me how she's disappointed that I don't love the boys the way, husband's name, and I do. I said that I do love the boys, and I asked if there was something I did or didn't do with the kids that upset her. She said no, that I was great with them. I asked if she thought I was paying enough attention to them. She said I was, but brought up my low tolerance for the fits. I apologized and reminded her that I'm really not used to it, and that it's kind of stressful, so I just removed myself from the situation. Things kind of developed from there, but we recovered and the rest of the trip was fine enough. Am I the asshole thinking that my sister's request is way off base? I love my nephews, but I don't think anyone can love children in the way that child's parents do. Update. Thank you for all the feedback. It gave me a lot of things to think about and reflect on. I've come to think my sister's criticism that I don't love her boys like she does is not an actual, literal expectation. I think it might be a weird, kind of manipulative way of saying, I need you to think I'm a good parent. I think I need to call her so we can talk about this and what's going on. Thanks for confirming that I'm NTA and that the perspectives of my family and friends were not just super biased in my favor. AITA for telling my mother-in-law if she keeps asking about our baby's name, she won't see her for an additional week every time she asks. I, 21F, am currently 39 weeks pregnant, due next Thursday. Over the course of my pregnancy, I have had several issues with my AmItheA-hole, the 2 biggest being her wanting to be in the delivery room when I give birth, even though I have made it clear since the beginning the only person I want there is my husband. It got to the point where I decided I didn't want any visitors at the hospital, not even my parents, because she threw a fit about them coming after baby was born. However, the biggest issue has been her wanting to know the baby's name. Baby is going to be named after my grandfather, who I have been extremely close to my entire life. Because of this, we decided to keep it a secret so it could be a surprise to him when she is born. My AmItheA-hole even went as far as snooping through my hospital bag to try and find either the sweater or the Welcome to World sign that has her name on it. Luckily, I caught her before she found them. Yesterday, she called my husband again asking why she can't know the name even going as far, saying, what if something happens to me and I never get to know my baby's name? For reference, she is in good health and does not work a dangerous job. After my husband informed me of this conversation, I called my AmItheA-hole and told her as of now, she will not meet the baby for at least 3 weeks after she is born, and each time she asks about the name after this point will be an additional week she will not meet her. She says I am being cruel and denying her baby. So AITA for telling my mill if she continues to ask about my baby's name, I will not allow her to meet the baby for another week. AITA for not doing an art commission I was not told about. Title sounds a little confusing. Wasn't sure how to best word it. Hopefully this all makes sense. I, F33, do a lot of art in the needlework medium. Embroidery, cross-stitch, weaving, etc. I'm going to toot my own horn here. I'm very good at it. I've won first prize at a couple of our state fair competitions, and the one tapestry piece I had in a gallery sold for a good bit of money. A few years ago, I made a choice I would no longer take commissions. The deadlines, back and forth between clients and all that jazz made me hate what was once a hobby I could do for hours, shutting my brain off. I'll still make presents on occasion. My wife's BFF just had a baby, and I made a cross-stitch birth announcement for the nursery, for example, but anything outside of that is not happening. This past week, I got a message on my Instagram from my friend Mike's friend, Abigail. Abigail said Mike recommended me for an embroidery she wanted done, and how soon could I get to the process? I told Abigail I was sorry, but I no longer take commissions, and Mike knew that already. Abigail was a little pissy, but Mike, OMG. He texted me in a fury saying he really buttered up my work to Abigail, and he was trying to date her, and I fucked things up for him. I'm sad that Mike is acting this way, but I also wonder that since Abigail was misled about me not doing commissions, should I just do it? My wife says absolutely not, and I 85% think she's right, but I just wanted the perspective of people who aren't married to me, LOL.
AITA for not giving back $7K from a vacation reimbursement so my brother can pay vet bills from his dog. Last summer, a family vacation was planned for my family, M40, wife, and 2 kids, my brother's family, M33, wife, 1 kid, and our parents. The plan was to go to Maui in May 2025. It's easily the most expensive trip any of us have been on. A fishing trip with Dad was booked, a very expensive VRBO was booked, and final payment occurred last month, and at that point could not be canceled. These shared costs were put on my credit card, and I was fully reimbursed by all parties for their share. Last week, my brother's black lab had a severe health issue. The dog was 6 years old, and unfortunately, it passed. I got word of it and sent my condolences. A few days later, I got a phone call from my brother. Essentially, he went all out trying to save the dog and has a significant vet bill coming his way. He informed me that him and his family are backing out of the trip. He asked for his money back that he paid me. Needless to say, a disagreement occurred between us. He thinks because he canceled, he should be reimbursed. My family and our parents will still be going. The trip can't be changed at this point. But I'm not reimbursing him. I'm not about to pay another $7,000 out of my pocket. I told him absolutely not. He's called me an asshole and threatened small claims court. It's been a pretty toxic last few days. He refuses to consider going, citing finances, emotional distress from the dog, and he doesn't want to be around me. Am I the asshole here?
80 for telling my autistic brother to quit correcting me? Anyways, I, 23F, have a bachelor's degree in psychology. Psychology also happens to be my autistic brother's non-PIM14M special interest. I was visiting my family this past week, and my brother and I have been chatting about interesting psychology things a lot. However, he likes to use social media as his prime source of information, which is fine as long as you do more research before believing and repeating things. But he tends to just believe anything he hears without fact-checking, especially if it's something that intrigues him. So it happened multiple times where he'd throw me a fun fact that was false, or he'd correct me on something I was telling him about with misinformation. And I'd always been super gentle correcting him and reminding him to double-check his information. Even though I did find it quite annoying, I never was harsh with him. But last night at the dinner table, we were talking about the structures of the brain, how psychology and medical things overlap. The conversation was mainly between my mother and I, as she's a doctor and could speak for the medical part of this, while my brother was just tuning in. We were talking about strokes and how it affects the brain. I began explaining to my father about the left and right brain and how they control opposite sides of the body when my brother stopped me to say that I was wrong and that it's the opposite way. I once again gently corrected him, but he was insistent that he was correct. I reminded him that I was the one with the degree in this topic, and he dropped it. Later after dinner, my parents, brother, and I were in the living room watching a movie that was on TV. During one of the commercial breaks, my brother brought up the left and right brain thing again, going on about how I was supposedly incorrect. I was really just done with the topic and was getting a little tired of being constantly corrected with misinformation, and I do not think I said this in any aggressive or rude way, but my exact words to him were, "I'd really appreciate if you'd quit correcting me when you're incorrect. Your source of information is random people on the internet. My sources are textbooks, experimental documentation, and the DSM-5. My brother had then stormed off to his room upset by what I had said, and my mother had told me I should have just let him have his way because he's autistic and just a kid. And in no way was I trying to attack my brother or be selfish and full of myself. I genuinely just wanted him to have the correct information, but the constant correcting began to get on my nerves a little bit. So ALTA, AITA, after telling my aunt they can't respect my decisions, then my kid can't come over anymore, I, 33F, have an aunt, 53F, who sometimes picks up daughter, 6F, for overnights at her place. My daughter recently returned from one of those trips. So I got a phone call about my daughter's toes being red, and maybe the shoes being too small. My aunt was wanting to throw them out, but I was going to pass them on to my younger niece, 2F, as my kid hasn't worn those shoes much. My aunt's boyfriend said he was worried I would put them back in her, which I said I wouldn't if they were small, but wanted them back to pass down to my niece. Turns out, she decided to go to my mom, 53F, for permission to pitch the shoes. My mom gave the blessing since she didn't know why I wanted them back. When my daughter was dropped off, my aunt dropped he and her stuff off quickly, then bolted, which was weird for her. As I was emptying my daughter's luggage, I noticed said shoes were not in there. Daughter sad that they told her they were keeping the shoes for safekeeping, but I found out the truth shortly after. I tried calling my aunt, but she is not answering. It's not just about the shoes, but this has happened multiple times with other things because my mom said it was okay, and her being my mom negates my decisions for my daughter. AITA for saying if my decision can't be respected, and if my daughter can't return with everything she brought them, she can't come over anymore. AITA for not reminding my fiancé that stoves are hot. Last night, my fiancé, 31me, and I, 30F, were winding down our days getting ready to make dinner. Together in the kitchen, I popped the chicken in the oven. Also in the oven was our cast iron pan. We go back to our respective video games, and then when the chicken was getting closer to finished, I go out to the kitchen to start on veggies. I take the now 400-degree cast iron out of the oven, turn on the stove, and plop some butter in there while I turn my back and start cutting veg. My fiancé comes out, asking what it is that he needs to do. I say I just need these veggies cut, which I was actively doing, and he goes to give the cast iron pan a shake to move the butter around. Yay, the 400-degree iron handle, he grabbed it. It was less than a second, no lasting damage, but definitely burned his fingers. First degree. Now the question becomes, Was I the asshole for not adequately warning him about the hot cast iron? More importantly, I am refusing more than 50% blame for the incident. To me, the cast iron handles will regularly get hot when using it on the stovetop, but obviously this was way hotter than usual hot, so I can't say that I would grab it with reckless abandon, like my lovely fiancé did. He claims I should at least take majority blame, 51% to Heidi 49% minimum, but he thinks more like 60% done 40%. Additionally, my back was turned. I didn't see him reach for the pan, or I would have warned him. We went back and forth on the percent blame for a long while last night, and we can't decide. Obviously, Reddit is the best place to go to solve relationship disputes, so AITA, edit. Thank you all. My fiancé and I were so excited to post this and have our relationship ripped to shreds. We turned it into date night at a local pizza place, played AITA bingo, and have loved all the comments. As always, these comments are rife with misreadings of the post. He had no idea I just took the pan out of the oven. Heating the cast iron in the pan is actually ideal over our shitty stovetop. And you're all right, and I should get one of those silicone handles. Thanks for the laughs. We had such a fun day. Reddit calling my relationship exhausting has been the highlight of my week. He accepts his idiot badge proudly. AITA for telling my boyfriend's kids to eat what's for dinner or don't eat at all. I, 27F, have been with my boyfriend, 30, for a little over a year now. We recently moved in together. I have an 8-year-old from an ex, and my boyfriend has 2 kids ages 6 and 9. Since we moved in together, I now have his children every weekend, and he works Fridays, so I am alone with them till he is off work. Friday night, I made meatloaf with roasted broccoli and mashed potatoes. My son eats well, he knows to eat the best he can, and if he don't finish his food, that's okay. But he at least has to eat the most he can, unless he don't want a before bedtime snack. I hold my boyfriend children to these same rules, which we haven't had any issues with till Friday night. Neither of the kids liked the food. The 9-year-old ate it, the 6-year-old refused, in which I said, I'm not making you another meal. So he went to bed without dinner. When my boyfriend got home, his 6-year-old was complaining he was hungry, and my boyfriend got upset with me that I refused to make him something else. I told him I wouldn't hold his children to different rules than my child. He got upset and ended up making him something else to eat, then told me that was horrible of me to deny a child dinner and blamed it on his young age, explaining I had to be more lenient. I explained that I had raised a young child before, and I was once a young child and followed those same rules, which just resulted in a huge argument and him calling me ignorant. Today we got a call from my boyfriend's ex, and now the children don't want to come till Saturday or Friday night late when my boyfriend is off work. This caused another big argument between my boyfriend and I. He once again called me an ignorant a-hole and said I needed to change my way of thinking. AITA? Add. I did not force this kid to go to bed hungry. I suggested him to eat a larger portion of his mashed potatoes and smaller portion of other things which he refused, and he didn't want to make anything else himself. AITA. For agreeing with my daughter, it is weird. Her friend's mom has access to their conversations. My daughter is 14 years old and has a friend, Chloe. She and Chloe have been friends for a little over a year now. Chloe's mom, Gina, is someone I'd consider pretty strict. I was aware she'd check Chloe's phone, and I know a lot of parents do this. But I found out a few months ago through my daughter that she'd respond through Chloe's phone to Chloe's friends, including my daughter. It was never anything overkill, just, Chloe can't talk right now, she's busy with homework, or whatever. I thought this was odd, but didn't say anything to Gina about it because that's her life and her business. I got a call from Gina earlier this afternoon. She was very pissed off and told me that my daughter was rude. I needed to start monitoring what she says, etc. I asked her what exactly happened, and she said my daughter gave her an attitude via text. I was still very confused and asked why they were texting. Gina became exasperated and snapped through Chloe's phone. I told her I'd call her back and asked my daughter specifically what happened. My daughter willingly showed me her texts. She had texted Chloe something. Gina had responded, using Chloe's phone, saying Chloe was busy. My daughter replied asking when Chloe would be available to talk. Gina told her, when she's ready, stop texting her. My daughter replied, you don't have to be so rude. Gina said she wasn't being rude. My daughter said yes, Gina was, and also called her a weirdo for using Chloe's phone. I told my daughter next time, just don't engage. I did also say it wasn't kind to call someone a weirdo and not to do it again, but that I also understood her frustration. I didn't punish her, she seemed receptive to the talk, and I left it at that. I called Gina back and told her I had spoken to my daughter and handled the problem. Gina started ranting that I need to monitor my daughter's phone, and have I seen some of the things she talks about? She started on crushes, rants about teachers, saying there were times my daughter badmouthed me when frustrated. I said that's all fine, I'd rather her have a safe space to vent with her friends. After all, she's a teenager. Gina kept pressing on the issue and what would be done. I told her nothing. I spoke with my daughter and handled it. Gina said, but she insulted an adult. I told her I handled it. But my daughter also didn't say anything that wasn't true. Gina was acting like a weirdo. Now, Gina is angry with me. My daughter doesn't care that I said all of this. However, my husband thinks that I shouldn't have said it, as it didn't solve anything. And Gina can parent how she wants. I said I never commented on Gina's parenting until she tried to undermine, insult mine. AITA, AITA for refusing to give up my college fund to help my parent with their debt. I just started college this year. Ever since I was little, my grandparents set up a college fund for me, and it's the only reason I can afford school without taking on massive debt. My parents always knew about it, and it was always meant for my education. Recently, my parents have been struggling financially due to bad investments and overspending. They sat me down and asked me to use my college fund to help them pay off their debts. They said that since they raised me, it's only fair that I help them now that they're struggling. I said no. I told them I was grateful for everything they've done, but this money was specifically for my education, and I wasn't going to throw away my future. They got upset and said I was being selfish and ungrateful. My mom even cried, saying she never thought her own daughter would turn her back on them. Now my parents barely talk to me. I feel horrible, but at the same time, I don't think I should have to sacrifice my future because of their financial mistakes. AITA for refusing to give up my college fund. AITA for refusing to share my college dorm room for my older sister and her baby. I, 19F, am in my first year of college and live in a small dorm room on campus. My sister, 26F, had a baby a few months ago, and she's been struggling financially. She and the baby's father broke up, and she had to move back in with our parents. The problem is, she hates living there because our parents are too controlling and judgmental about her being a single mom. She asked if I could request permission for her to stay in my dorm with her baby for a while because it would be quieter and give her space to figure things out. I told her no. My dorm is tiny, barely big enough for me, and I have a roommate. Plus, a baby crying all night in a shared dorm. That's not fair to my roommate or me. She got upset and said I was being selfish, that families should help each other, and that she'd do it for me if roles were reversed. Now, my parents are also pressuring me to just let her stay for a little while because she's struggling. My roommate thinks the whole situation is crazy and that I shouldn't feel bad, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm being a bad sister. AITA? Update. I spoke to the dorm in charge and was told it wouldn't be allowed at all. I informed my parents and sister about it, but my sister is still upset and says I should have been more open to the idea, and that I shouldn't have denied her for my selfish reasons before asking for permission. AITA for not following my husband's family tradition. My 28F husband, ni 29 mem, comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree with his family on many things, it has never really been an issue until now. I am currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband and I couldn't be happier as we've been trying for a while. Since I first found out I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our child. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. Basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of two names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be too, and so on and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, that would truly be his. So we chose another name and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everyone. This week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, amongst which was a bunch of clothes on which she hand-embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice and thanked her for it, but told her that we wouldn't be naming our child Henry, as we had already told her in the past. She started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. I explained to her that we'd rather give our child a name that we chose, and that Henry could be his middle name. She immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family?" And making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking a tradition that went back hundreds of years. Honestly, not sure about that. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made that choice. But she wouldn't listen. She suggested that we names him Henry on paper, as his legal name, and then called him something else. But I thought that would be confusing for him, and told her that he would be named what we chose. She kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition. And at one point, I lost it, which is partially to blame on hormones, I think, and told her that it was our child, so we did what we wanted, and we didn't have to follow a stupid tradition. She stormed out, and my husband has since received texts from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition, and it can be really beautiful, but also I feel like that shouldn't be an obligation, and it's okay to change things. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on that, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure, and am mentally exhausted by all this drama. AITA for encouraging our friend group to stop visiting a friend due to their house rules. There is a person in our friend group who usually hosts us at her place for weekly drinks. She recently became very active in the vegan community and promotes her views a lot. We don't mind it too much, although she can be annoying at times. We usually do BYOB for the weekly drinks, and we've never had any incidents or problems. I think we're quite considerate guests, and she enjoys hosting people, so it was all fine until a month ago when she suddenly lashed out at another girl in the friend group for bringing a bottle of Bailey's to the weekly drinks. She was bluntly rude to the girl and made her pretty uncomfortable because I don't want any dairy in my glasses, no matter how much you will wash them after. We were like, okay, whatever, your glasses, so you get to decide, but afterwards I've asked everybody if they'd prefer me to host from now on. Everyone was uncomfortable about the situation, and we decided that I'd be hosting from now on. It's been a month since then, and the original host, Ocha, seems quite upset. I think she really enjoyed her role as a host and valued it quite a bit. So IDK, wondering if that seemed like a good decision. On one hand, she has the right to set the rules in her place, and she's upset now. On the other, it seemed really petty, and the rude reaction was over the top. AITA for refusing to help my best friend with her wedding because she didn't make me a bridesmaid? My best friend, 24F, we'll call her May, and I, 24F, have been close since middle school. We've talked about being in each other's weddings, so when she got engaged last year, I assumed I'd be a bridesmaid. She recently asked me to help with the wedding planning, but when she showed me the list for her bridal party, I wasn't on the list. I asked why, and she got awkward and said she had to make some choices. The party included her sister, her fiancé's sister, and a few newer friends she's known for a couple of years. She wanted a small party. I didn't want to make it a big deal, though. I congratulated her and figured I'd still be a guest. But then she started asking me for a lot of help. Things like dress shopping, DIY decorations, venue hunting, making party favors, etc., etc. I finally told her, hey, I love you, but I feel weird doing all of this when I'm not even a bridesmaid. She got angry and said that she thought I'd still want to be involved because we're best friends. I told her I'd still be at the wedding, but I wasn't going to do all of this extra work when she didn't even consider me close enough to be at her bridal party. Now she and some of our mutual friends are giving me the cold shoulder, saying I'm being petty and making the wedding about me. But I'm not going to be doing bridesmaid level work if I'm not one. AITA for not going on vacation with my friend and her kids? Update. She has just sent me a 12-minute voice note ending our 10-year friendship because she thinks we should have celebrated NYE at her home with her kids and that we should take this trip with her to cheer her up and that the friendship wasn't on equal terms. This is the message I'm thinking about sending. If it sounds a little weird, it's because it's translated into English from my first language. I'm sorry that you see it like that. I do understand that you're going through an incredibly tough time, and it was absolutely never our intention to leave you behind. But to me, friendship doesn't mean that everything always has to revolve around one person, even if they're going through a hard time. We tried to find compromises, both on New Year's Eve and with the vacation, but it feels like it has to be exactly the way you imagine it, or not at all. And honestly, that doesn't feel like an equal friendship to me either. Of course, I can understand that you feel excluded, but that was never my intention either. There are simply moments when, as someone without kids, I want to spend time without children. You always emphasize that your kids are a part of you, which is of course your decision, but it also means that sometimes you can't have both. If you never really ask yourself whether there are alternatives because you assume from the start that you always have to or want to have your kids with you, then that's your choice, but you can't expect others to always go along with that decision. I think it's really sad that you want to end our 10-year friendship over this because you mean a lot to me. But if this is what you've decided for yourself, then I have no choice but to respect that. I still hope that at some point we can find our way back to each other, and I wish you and the kids all the best. AITA for not going on vacation with my friend and her kids. My 30F friend, Sarah, also 30F, is a single mom with 2 kids. She's been going through a rough time after separating from her husband last year, and I've done my best to be there for her. My other close friend, Lena, and I have always accommodated Sarah's situation, visiting her at her house so she wouldn't have to go out, planning outings around her kids' needs, and being as flexible as possible. Recently, Lena and I decided to go on a vacation together, just the 2 of us. When Sarah found out, she got very upset and told us that she had expected us to include her and her kids, since we are her closest friends and she doesn't have many people to travel with. She also said that because she's in a difficult situation, she thought this was something we would do for her as her friends. Lena and I explained that while we love her and her kids, a vacation with them would be completely different from what we have in mind. We also offered to take a shorter trip with her and the kids, like a long weekend, but she dismissed that because she wanted a full week at the beach. She then said that she would have let me join if the roles were reversed. But to me, that's not a fair comparison. If I were tagging along on a vacation with her family, I'd be adapting to their plans. Whereas if she came with us, we would have to plan the whole trip around her kids. Sarah has now said that she doesn't know if our friendship will survive this, which I think is an extreme reaction. I understand that she's disappointed, but I don't think it's fair to guilt trip us into changing our plans. She's also acting like we're abandoning her when, in reality, we've been incredibly accommodating for years. I feel bad that she's struggling, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's my rest to ensure she has someone to travel with. So, AITA for not wanting to go on vacation with her and her kids? AITA for not recalling my dog when she chased my neighbors off of my property? I, 30F, have 4 dogs, but the one this story is about is a 4F Roddy named Bella. A few months ago, new renters moved next door, and things have been unpleasant to say the least. The neighbors are always screaming and fighting late into the night, and the men in the home have a habit of always trying to talk to, or just watch, me when I'm outside. This is not done in a friendly way, and it has made me feel very uncomfortable. I'm a single female living alone, and our police force isn't the best, so I just keep my head down hoping they'll move out soon. The other night, around 11 p.m., I was outside with my dogs in the backyard. My neighbors have a chain fence, but I have no fence along my property, except for the part that separates their property from mine. One of my dogs is on leash, but the other 3 are completely trained off leash and do not leave the yard. I know some people may not agree with that, but I live in the countryside, and also my dogs have never run off. One of the women who lives next door, for some reason, decided to enter my yard because she wanted to just play with my puppies. Bella growled and walked closer to me, and I asked the woman to please leave, but she just kept telling me it was fine, and ignored what I was saying. One of the men decided to join her, and they came more onto my property, which then led to Bella barking, and after a few moments of them continuing, she chased after them. She stopped running the second she hit the property line, and went inside with me immediately after. Now these neighbors keep making comments about not feeling safe with their kids, and how I should have called my dog back because they weren't a threat. I don't feel like I did anything wrong, but I also don't want the area to think that my dogs are dangerous, especially with the stigma against Rotties. I also don't want to stir up unnecessary drama when it's already difficult living next to these people. AITA? Update. I know I just posted this, but thank everyone for the advice. I've called a friend who has agreed to come over tonight, and he will crash in my spare room until I feel safe. I'm going to contact the police tomorrow and make a report, as well as get a runner and a cheap camera as soon as I get paid. I'll update if anything changes, but I hope you all have a fantastic night, and thank you for the advice.
ATA for refusing to pay my friend $60 that I owe him? I, 30M, and my close friend Jake, 29M, have been close for years. Over the years, I've lent Jake money so many times. I'm talking $50 here for gas, $100 there during a trip, even once $300 when he needed to buy an emergency PS5. I never really kept track because I trusted him. He paid me back some of it over time, but he still owes me a decent chunk, which I've never bugged him about. He would occasionally gift me skins in the games we play in an attempt to balance the books. A few weeks ago, Jake covered my $60 when I left my wallet at home during a group dinner. I told him I'd get him back, but life got busy, and I totally forgot. A few days ago, he texted me, "Can you send me that $60 from dinner?" I apologized for forgetting and said I'd send it that night, to which he replied, "I shouldn't have to chase you for this, man." That rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't say anything in the moment, but it really started to bug me. I thought about all the times I've lent him money and how I never pressured him to pay me back. I've never once sent him a passive-aggressive text or made him feel bad about it. So I didn't send him the money right away and instead told him, "Look, I get that I owe you $60 and I'll pay you back. But let's not pretend this is some one-sided thing. You still owe me hundreds, and I've never hounded you about it." Jake didn't take that well. He said, "It's not the same thing because I never asked for my money back, so it's on me if I didn't care enough to get it." So now he's pissed at me thinking I did not pay him back intentionally and saying I'm deflecting to avoid paying him back, and that I'm being a stupid friend. I feel like I'm in a weird spot here. Yeah, I owe him $60, and of course I'll pay it back. But on the other hand, his reaction feels so hypocritical, given everything I've done for him financially over the years. AITA? Edit. I paid him back like I always intended to do.
AITA for accepting an invitation on my husband's behalf that I knew he wouldn't like and refusing to cancel it. My husband is a busy person, but he's not such a busy person that he can't manage invitations from his family and friends if he wanted to. His family and friends act like I'm responsible for his social calendar, which I didn't mind at first because I didn't have anything better to do, but I'm tired of being the one to have to say no to everything, and it sucks having to deal with people trying to convince me to come to things when I know they only really care about my husband attending. I've tried to get them to go to him directly, but he just sends them back my way or ignores them so they come to me anyway. I've spoken to him multiple times about not wanting to be responsible for our social calendar, and he acts like he gets it, but then never responds to invites, so nothing's changed. So I've done something that you guys may or may not think is petty. My mother-in-law has asked for us to join monthly family dinners with her side of the family. I prefer her side of my husband's family, but my husband is closer to his dad's side, so we see them more. Usually, I wouldn't accept an invite like this without checking with my husband, but since she asked him first and he ignored her, I decided to accept on his behalf. The first dinner is on Sunday, which is the day we were also supposed to have dinner with his grandfather on his dad's side, but he never told me that was happening, and neither did anyone else. His dad's side have a horrible habit of just assuming we'll be at something because they've told us. Part of me thinks the dinner with his grandfather is a lie because I know he's been avoiding his half-brother like the plague since he keeps asking him for an investment and his step-siblings will be there. My husband told me to cancel, but I don't want to because my mother-in-law was so happy when I said yes. Also, his sister will be there, and I haven't seen her in forever. I won't stop him from canceling if he really wants to, but he's turned this situation into a fight because I didn't ask him first, and now I don't want to be the one to cancel. He's basically said, if we go to the first one, he expects me to tell my mother-in-law this won't be a regular thing, but I think he should be the one to do that since I have no problem having dinner with them regularly. AITA for telling my mom no to giving her boyfriend a brownie. For context, my mom, 46F's boyfriend, 43M, of 6 months, has been living with us for at least 3 months now. I, 17F, don't like it because he does not really help out much. X doesn't pay for things, do chores around the house, etc. Just sits in his room. I made brownies 2 days ago just to try out a recipe. I ate the middle piece because it's my favorite part, and I jokingly sent a picture of it to my mom since it's also her favorite. She has a laugh over it. Later yesterday, her boyfriend is sick and somehow my brownies got brought up. He asks for 1 or 2 and my mom says yes, without asking me if it was all right. She comes out of her room and tells me he's getting one, and I say no at first. She then keeps pushing me, but I hold my ground. She starts yelling at me, takes a brownie, then goes back into their room telling her boyfriend how mean I was being to her. It really hurts my feelings because she didn't listen to me saying no. This morning, she walks out saying that I really hurt her feelings. I told her she also hurt my feelings and told her why I said no. She then says that she didn't raise her kid to not share. Am I the asshole for saying no to my mom's boyfriend getting a brownie? AITA for gossiping with my mom about my brother's fiancé is potentially lying about giving birth. I, 22F, have an older brother, John 32M, who has been with his fiancé, Jane 30F, for 4 years. They have a 4-month-old. Jane found out she was pregnant at 5.5 weeks and immediately called my mom to tell her. Mom was confused, but still very excited. Jane said she was going to tell John when he got back from his work trip. A few hours later, she called again, sobbing, saying she has insatiable cravings. Mom made a joke like, "Isn't it a bit early for cravings?" And Jane went off on her. She started yelling about how this was her pregnancy and no one else's. It was an odd reaction. She also apologized for her outburst by blaming it on hormones. When my brother returned from his trip, him and Jane left to stay at her mother's, and we didn't see her until after the baby was born. John said this was because Jane was afraid of losing the pregnancy and wanted to be with her mom, and we needed to respect boundaries. Whenever someone would ask about Jane or the baby, they would shut it down with vague answers like, every pregnancy is different, or she's carrying small, which isn't unusual. They barely shared anything about the pregnancy. No ultrasound pictures, no baby shower, and Jane didn't want anyone around during the delivery. I also discovered that every craving she listed came from one article about pregnancy cravings. She even listed multiple items in the same order as the article. When the baby was born, we were finally allowed to see Jane and John, and baby, of course. It was very bittersweet, as we all wished we could have been there for Jane to help out, but Jane and John both reassured us that we did help out by staying away during the pregnancy. The weirdest part, though, is how Jane describes the birth. She claims she had an epidural via IV drip into her hand. Edited BC, I didn't elaborate. Which is not how those are administered. When I asked clarifying questions, thinking she'd gotten confused, which is understandable, she shut down and refused to answer, like how she would during the pregnancy. She said the baby had latching issues because he was born with no umbilical cord stump. This can technically happen, but it's a rare and fatal medical condition that their baby does not have. The final straw was when she told us that the baby basically fell out of her within an hour of being in labor, despite my brother telling us how hard the birth was, and even stating that was why they weren't going to try for any more kids. Mom is on the same side as me, and has been noting this inconsistencies and inaccuracies, but doesn't know how to bring it up, and their reactions don't help. A few days ago, my brother texted Mom saying her doubt of Jane is disrespectful, and they both want full apologies from the both of us for bullying Jane about her pregnancy labor. I haven't made any outright accusations about it, nor have I said any of this to Jane. I've only asked questions when she brings the birth pregnancy up. AITA for having doubts.
AITA for leaving our hotel room to use the lobby toilet. I, M24, am currently on a weekend away with my girlfriend, F23. I was really excited and planned this trip as a surprise, and she absolutely our loved out first night out. I took her for dinner, then we watched a live musical before heading back to the hotel. This morning, I woke up at around 6 a.m. needing to use the toilet, really badly. I'm talking, my stomach was making those super bad noises that usually indicate I'm going to stink the bathroom out for a few hours. My GF always starts her days with a shower, so not wanting to make the bathroom smell really bad, I snuck out to use the lobby toilet. I was probably gone a good half hour, but when I came back, my girlfriend was in tears, crying about me leaving, saying what if someone broke in, why I didn't tell her I was going, what if something happened while I was gone, to me or her, etc. I was really confused by the reaction, and explained that I would have made the place smell really bad, and didn't want to ruin her morning with literal shit. She didn't really care, and insisted I should have woken her up, left a note, just gone in our bathroom, etc. Am I missing something? I don't understand. AITA, am I being oblivious to something really obvious?
AITA for gossiping with my mom about my brother's fiancé is potentially lying about giving birth. Update. Well, I was right to have questions. After I made my post, I stopped talking to my mom about the pregnancy, but things still didn't add up. Fast forward to my brother's birthday, and the whole family was over at Mom's. Our aunts, uncles, cousins, and older brother were all guests. During the party, Jane mentioned how the baby had BSA, and our aunt called her out on it. She's a maternity nurse. It caused a huge argument where Jane and John left in a rage. But it turns out that Jane didn't give birth. The baby is actually a product of my brother's affair. He had been cheating on Jane with some woman for about 6 months before she got pregnant. Apparently, Jane and John offered her a lump sum of $25,000 for her to allow them to adopt the baby when it was born, and to never interact with the baby or their family ever again. They didn't want this cheating to be found out, so they pretended Jane was pregnant and moved away. Jane's mom was in on the whole thing. The kicker? This all came out because the woman John had the affair with decided she wanted her baby back. Apparently, she hadn't been fully informed about the agreement's legal implications, and she felt pressured to sign it in the first place. She also barely speaks English, and the contract was all English. She's now pursuing legal action against Jane and John to get full custody of the baby. She said she waited this long because she was afraid of her immigrant status getting in the way. All their closed-off answers and refusal to engage was because they were afraid of this coming out. Apparently, Jane was terrified of someone noticing the baby's eyes. Green. John and Jane both have blue eyes, but Lucy has green eyes. Things have gone to absolute shit. The whole situation is bigger than anything I could have imagined. I won't be updating unless something else crazy happens. IDK if this was a sign to keep trusting my gut, but damn. AITA for charging my adult children rent. I, 49F, have 2 adult children who both still live at home, Emma, 25F, and Ian, 23M. Their father and I divorced 12 years ago, so it's been the 3 of us for a while now. I had received child support until they turned 18. Their father had paid it willingly, so it wasn't arranged through the courts. This is why he stopped at 18 even though they were both technically still in school. Fast forward to present day, they both work full-time, don't have any debt from school, and both still live at home. I've asked them repeatedly to contribute a set amount each month towards household expenses since I can't continue supporting them forever. Ian doesn't have a problem with this, but Emma thinks it's my responsibility as her mother to support her financially until she's ready to move out. I'm not asking them for much or trying to profit from them. I just want to be able to save for my retirement and be able to retire. I'd be happy with $100 each a week to cover their share of groceries, utilities, and household supplies. I buy all the groceries, laundry detergent, toilet paper, etc. for the house. They are responsible for their cars and related expenses, cell phones, and personal toiletries. Some of my daughter's friends live at home for free, but those friends also live in a home with both parents working. My daughter has actually said she will quit her job and go on social assistance just so she can't afford to pay me rent. So, internet strangers, AITA for asking my adult children to pay rent to live at home.
AITA for not putting in more effort to dissuade the kid from eating very spicy food. My 21 years dad's business counterpart, Steve, is currently in our country on a trip. He also brought his daughter, Emma, 13. Initially, Dad wanted my sister, 18, to take the kids sightseeing, but my sister shook her head and said her English isn't good enough and that she wouldn't be able to hold an interesting conversation with her. So my dad and his counterpart gave me that task instead. I felt obligated to inform Steve our AQI is 154, so he can decide if he wants me to take the kid to see one of our temples outdoors, we have beautiful Buddhist temples, or to an indoors museum instead. He picked the latter, so I took her to a national museum. Later, I took Emma to the mall where we had dinner at a nice restaurant. This is where the problem is. Our curry is very spicy. It's a staple of our cuisine. The restaurant has this sort of chart where 1 chili is mild, and 5 chilies means extremely spicy. My mom always picks 5 chilies, and then tells the waiter to tell the chef to go extra spicy, while the most I ever took is 3 chilies, and that was only in an ill-conceived attempt to impress a girl. Emma saw me pick 1 chili and asked how spicy can it be. Then she picked 5. I told her, that's a very bad idea. She insisted. I told her, I'm telling you, it's way too spicy. But she said she can take it. She spat out the first bite and got teary-eyed. I quickly ordered coconut water. It's how my mom taught me to soothe my mouth from the burning sensation. Later, let her pick another dish and a dessert. She was quite mad, and so was her dad when she told him. He said that as an adult, I shouldn't have let her do something so foolish.
AITA for refusing to do my husband's laundry anymore after he had a go at me after surgery. I had gallbladder removal surgery yesterday, and thankfully all went well. They removed a massive stone and several smaller ones. I even got to take pictures. Coming around from the anesthesia was harder than I'd imagined, but the doctor said it was quite normal to feel very tired and groggy afterward. They said this was quite normal. I was lucky enough to have my surgery in a private hospital funded by the NHS, so my staff was, but I still couldn't wait to get home to see my children and sit on my own sofa in my own house and watch my own TV. I got home quite tired and sore just before 7 p.m. The morphine has definitely worn off at this point, and I haven't had any more pain relief, so I just want to sit down and relax and take some codeine and give my kids a cuddle. I walk in and the living room looks a mess, which was annoying, but my husband had made sure my pillow was on the sofa like I'd asked for earlier. And it's hard work looking after 3 kids, 10 autistics, and 2. They'd not long finished dinner, take away, and he'd been doing loads of laundry that had piled up since our washer broke and only got fixed the day before. I didn't say anything about it. It's not the end of the world. I had barely sat down 5 minutes when my husband turns to me and says, "Oh, I don't mean to have a go at you since you just got home from surgery, but can you please stop putting my football shirts in the dryer since it ruins them? I've told you before they can't go in there." I was a bit taken back. Like, is this really the best time to bring this up? He even acknowledged that I just got home from surgery. And for the record, I don't think it's wrong of him to not want his shirts ruined, but really, this is the time you're going to bring it up? No? Do you need anything? Do you need any medication? Are you comfortable? Nah, just my shirts. I don't remember putting them in the washing machine or the dryer, and I don't remember folding one up when the dryer finished either, so all I could say was sorry. I genuinely thought his football shirts were okay to go on the dryer. I absolutely swear I remember him saying last year they could go in, and I'm usually pretty good about remembering what can be tumble-dried and what can't. He's made mistakes too. I've told him a few times that our daughter's school cardigan shouldn't be tumble-dried. He completely ruined one, said he'd replace it, and 6 months later still hasn't replaced it. If you live in the UK, I don't need to tell you, branded uniform items are not cheap. I was like, you know what? Do your own fucking laundry then. Then if anything gets damaged, that's on you. Don't have your stuff ready for work? That's your problem. And don't ever fucking bother asking me to iron anything either. But now I'm lying here at 5 a.m. wondering if I'm just being overly petty for the sake of it. I do most of the laundry as I'm a stay-at-home mom, and he does work all week long. AITA, AITA, for walking out of a restaurant after my sister kept making rude remarks and trying to speak on my behalf. My sister, 24F, and I, 26F, never really had the best relationship growing up. I've always tried to keep it civil, but she wouldn't and has always been rude to me and would try and speak on my behalf as if she's my lawyer. To make things relevant, I'm on the spectrum. She will constantly convince me to say no whenever others ask me a question, tell me to shut up whenever I talk to my friends or anyone that wanted to have a conversation with me, or my sister will shake her head no either because she disapproves of something, or she simply wants me to shut the fuck up. This past weekend, my parents asked me and my sister to meet with them at a restaurant for dinner, as we didn't see each other in weeks and my parents both wanted to treat us. We met them in the restaurant and everything went well until it was time to order. I'm not much of an eater, so I wanted to order some of the appetizers, but my parents encouraged me to buy an entree so I can have some food to take home if I don't finish. I thought about getting it, but I saw my sister just shaking her head. I asked her what her issue was, and she said that she knows I don't need the entree and therefore I shouldn't waste money or food. My parents told her that isn't her concern, and I can order for myself. I ordered the entree I liked, and when our food came, my sister was glaring at me the entire time. I finished my food, and I guess I didn't really need to take leftovers home since they were all gone LOL. When asked if we wanted dessert, my dad asked me if I would like some. I said I was full, but my dad said he'd want me to at least take something home, so I ordered a cheesecake. That was when my sister snapped. She called me a spoiled brat for wasting food and our father's money, and why do I fucking need dessert? My dad told my sister to calm down and said she can get dessert too. My sister got even more angry and called me names such as a fat pig. I'm around 115, so not even close. A yes woman, whatever the fuck that means, and how I'm wasting money. I make my own money, so IDK what her issue was. I didn't want to be around her, so I just got up and left. My parents begged me to stay as we planned to get coffee somewhere else after, but I declined. I couldn't stay if my sister was going to continue to be there. I even changed my mind on dessert. When I got home, I've gotten a couple of calls from my parents apologizing on my sister's behalf, and my mom said I shouldn't have walked out and let my sister get the better of me. She tends to defend my sister a lot, so I told her she needed to wake up and understand how my sister has always tried to control me for reasons I can't understand. Am I the asshole for walking out?
AITA for not passing it on at the food cart? I was standing in a long line at a food cart, waiting to get a popcorn refill, and the gentleman ahead of me gave his order, then said, "And whatever he wants," directing his generous smile my way. I immediately protested, "Sir, you don't need to pay for mine." But he said he wanted to, and I didn't want it to be a thing, so I thanked him. Then he looked me in the eye and, expectantly, said, "Pass it on." He smiled again and looked at the long line behind me before turning to get his order. I got my refill of popcorn and said thank you again, and he looked so disappointed that I left instead of saying, "I'll pay for the guy behind me." And he stopped me and seriously said, "Make sure you pass it on someday." I repeated the words of someone I once tried to pay back. Pay it forward, that's what it's all about. I thanked him again and escaped, but I came for the cheapest thing on the menu. Popcorn is like $2, and there was a large family behind me, and most people were coming in big groups for alcohol. So I might have gotten free popcorn, and I appreciate the gesture, but I might then have had to shell out $50 for beer for a bunch of randos. And I've never liked the pass it on thing. It's generous of the first person, then the last person gets a freebie, but as is often said here, all the middle people get their prices randomized, and it's a headache for the workers. So I will pay it forward sometime, and I definitely have in the past, but I didn't play along in the moment, and I could tell the man felt his grand gesture was wasted. So, AITA?
AITA for letting my daughter have her own bedroom. My husband and I have 3 kids, 14M, 13F, and 10M. We used to live in a 2-bedroom house where all the kids stayed in the same room and shared the same bathroom. There were many arguments about bedroom and bathroom space, especially amongst the 2 oldest. We have just purchased our first home, and the house has 3 bedrooms. As my middle child is the only girl, I thought it would be more appropriate for her to have her own room and bathroom away from the boys. So I gave her the sole bedroomed bathroom, and the boys share a room. However, my oldest son has been moping about it ever since we moved in. He believes, since he is the oldest, he should have his own room. I told him it is better for him and his brother to be in one room, but he is still complaining about having to share a room with a little kid and not having his own space. My oldest has started barging in my daughter's bathroom when he has his own with his little brother. I told him to stay out of his sister's bathroom, but he got upset saying he doesn't have a damn thing to himself. I grounded him for cussing at me. My husband later on went and talked with my son, and now thinks maybe our son is right and he should have his own room as the oldest.
ITA for finally telling my brother-in-law to leave after he's been mooching off us for a year. AITA for finally telling my brother-in-law to leave after he's been mooching off us for a year. He moved in saying he just needed a few months until he was able to save enough money to rent his own place. It's been a year, but he's never once paid for bills, groceries, nothing. He doesn't even do basic chores. But my wife, she's his brother, always tries to cover for him and does his chores for him instead. He leaves dishes in the sink, doesn't take out the trash, just sits around on his phone when he's at home to play mobile games or goes out on his motorcycle to go on long rides with his buddies. We've been biting our tongues because he's family, but last week was the last straw. He came home late, parked his bike, and didn't lock the gate. As a result of his neglect, our dog of 12 years got out. We searched everywhere and even made Facebook posts, only to find out a few hours later that he got hit by a car just outside our subdivision. We were devastated and I was very furious. But guess who was the one acting pissed off? My BL, saying it wasn't his fault and that shit happens and that he'd just buy us a new dog. LOL. He hasn't even contributed a single cent to our monthly electric or internet bills. I lost it. Told him to pack his stuff and get out. My wife thinks I was too harsh, but I honestly don't care anymore. He doesn't respect our home, our rules, or our damn dog. AITA for not considering my wife's feelings first. A part of me feels that we should have talked about it first, but then I acted on my own out of anger. AITA.
AITA. I changed my mind about my order at Auntie Anne's, but my husband insisted I still get it, and when I didn't, he argued and stormed off. My husband and I went to the mall to pick up his suit from the tailor. As we were walking, we passed by Auntie Anne's and decided to grab a quick snack. As we approached, I mentioned that I wouldn't mind having some hot dog pretzel bites, while he decided on the cinnamon bites. When we reached the cashier to place our order, they informed us that they were out of hot dog pretzel bites and that the next batch would be ready in about 10 minutes. My husband placed his order and asked if I still wanted the hot dog bites. I told him I'd decide after we visited the next store and that he could go ahead with his order. Despite that, he insisted on adding the hot dog bites anyway, arguing that it was just a 10-minute wait. He then told the cashier to include them in the order. I reiterated that I wanted to wait and asked the cashier to remove them. Instead of doing so immediately, she looked to my husband for confirmation. He continued to insist I get them, but I looked him in the eye and firmly said, I do not want them anymore. Then I turned to the cashier and repeated, I asked you to please remove them from the order. At that point, she finally did. After we paid, my husband told me I had embarrassed him, called me childish, and berated me before storming off for 30 minutes, leaving me standing there, all because I didn't want to pay for something I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. Whipte. If I tell my wedding planner friend what her assistant did at my wedding, hey, y'all, throw away, so I'ma try to be quick with here. I am 27F and married my best friend 28M about a month ago. One of my good friends is a wedding planner and I used her company for the coordinating. She was a guest at the wedding but had 3 other people from her company work with my husband and I. They were amazing. The whole wedding went perfectly. Not a single complaint about the job the company did. One of the assistants was this guy who looked to be about my age. I didn't give it much thought. This past weekend, I hung out with my friend Clara, 25F. This is the first time we are seeing each other since my wedding. Clara told me a funny story about my wedding. She said a few days after my wedding, she received an Instagram follow-in message from someone she didn't know. The gist of the message was that it was from the assistant coordinator at my wedding. He pretty much said that he was working and couldn't say anything, but he noticed her at the wedding and thought she was really beautiful, and he wanted to ask her on a date. She asked how he found her, and he proudly said that he noticed her, looked up the seating chart of the table she was seated at for dinner, and looked up every girl at the table until he found her. She said she wasn't comfortable with that and blocked him. She told me it was funny in hindsight, but at the time, she was a little uncomfy. Clara did emphasize to me she didn't think it was a big deal. Would I be an asshole if I told my wedding planner friend about what happened? She will most likely report him to the head of the company, and maybe he will or maybe he won't be fired. I don't know if I'm being vindictive or not. It doesn't sit right that we paid a guy to do a job and he ended up stalking and DMing my friend. AITA for a text I sent in a group chat while in labor. Let's jump into this. I, 29F, welcomed my 3rd baby in November. I have a group chat with my husband's family, 2 sisters, Sil and Mom, to share kid pics, funny stories, and labor updates. At 37 weeks and 5 days, I reached out to announce that my baby might arrive today. I'd been experiencing strong contractions since 5:50 a.m. Everyone but my Sil responded with excitement and praying emojis. The nurses said I wasn't dilated enough to be admitted, despite the strong contractions. This was at noon. I updated the chat. Everyone seemed concerned and asked if I still thought if it might still be that day. I assured it was most likely going to happen that day, judging from past experiences, but I would go home to labor in comfort. This is where I might be the a-hole. My Sil, who also gave birth to her 3rd baby a couple months prior, via C-section, I am not judging nor think of her as less than, just context is key, decided to text how glad she was that I wasn't in real labor and that it's better that I wait to have the baby another couple of weeks. She then sent a bunch of screenshots and links to articles about false labor and Braxton Hicks, as if I'd never given birth or experienced pregnancy before. I replied, mid-contraction. Not to be bitey, but this ain't my first rodeo and I know how to Google things as well. I'd been checked and would be checked again before deciding if I'd go home. Well, I did go home, only to go back to the hospital a couple of hours later and had my baby at 10:15 that night. Sil hasn't replied to me and unfriended me on Facebook. Not that I care. Was I an a-hole for saying that? And should I have texted in the group chat while in labor? So, Reddit, was I the a-hole? Edit. I meant to elaborate on the C-section part, which I do not. Her first baby was a preemie and she had an emergency C-section. Her youngest two were scheduled. The point I was trying to make was that our experiences with pregnancy and childbirth are completely different. Edit. More context about my Sil and our relationship. She believes she's the family matriarch. After we moved 2 hours away, she started excluding us from family gatherings and made a new group chat without us. She is always shocked at how intelligent my husband is because he went to community college instead of a university like she did. I didn't go to college. I saw no point in going into debt I didn't know what I would go to college for, so I decided to wait. So she often treats me like I am unintelligent. I think the snappy text was probably long incoming. But it was poorly timed and shouldn't have been in a group chat. It was not the first time I had gone off on her in a group chat either. She singled me out a few months prior, questioning my ability to care for my kids by myself while my husband was away for a couple of days. Yes, in the big family group chat. So I snapped back. My husband saw the message before me and said, "I'll let you handle her," as he held me back many times beforehand to keep peace. Like I said, it was possibly poorly timed but long incoming.
AITA for not telling my kid I'm not her actual dad. So for context, when I-24 was 19 when my mom had my younger sister, MJ, not actually her name for privacy. My mom was a drug addict, stopping during pregnancy. But when MJ was about 5 months old, she started back on drugs, dropping MJ off any place she could. Seeing this, I wanted to give MJ a life that she deserved. Not what our mother gave me. Even though I was only 19, I filed a petition to get custody of her. It was a long, hard process. But when MJ was 2, I finally got full custody. All this to say, I'm legally MJ's dad. I'm the only dad she knows, and she calls me dad. A year ago, I met my girlfriend, AITA, 24F, and we started dating not long after. I really thought I found somebody to like me and MJ. AITA would always take MJ on girls' days and little dates. I proposed to AITA on Sunday. It seemed like everything was great until a few hours ago. AITA was at my apartment having dinner with me and MJ. Well, when I was cooking dinner, I heard MJ say something along the lines of, "You're going to marry my daddy and you're going to be best friend." I thought it was cute until I heard AITA laugh and say, "He's not your dad, MJ." Which caught me off guard. I guess she thought I couldn't hear her because there's a wall between the kitchen. But still, I don't know why AITA said that. MJ was confused as 5-year-olds are said I was, and AITA kept correcting her until MJ started crying, which honestly made me mad. I asked AITA why she would even say that, and AITA stated she was going to find out eventually, and I was an arse for not telling MJ in the first place. I got mad, and one thing led to another. I said some things I shouldn't have, telling her she had no right, and AITA went home and me and MJ had dinner alone. AITA started blowing up my phone later saying what I did was wrong, and basically was just ranting to me through text. I started doubting myself, and now I'm here. So, AITA. I was going to tell MJ I was her brother someday, yes, but when she's old enough to understand MJ is only 5, she doesn't make sense of it. Also, sorry if I'm bad at explaining.
Wibta. If I only spoke German to my husband despite him requesting, I don't. I, F31, recently signed up to sit an advanced German exam with the full support and encouragement of my M30 husband. We live in Germany where I work in an English-speaking environment. So, to get extra practice in, I told him that after X date, we'd switch to German, which he is fluent in. Grew up here. We've managed 2 days so far, where even if he accidentally says something in English, I answer in German. But last night he told me he needed a break from me speaking German. I refused and said it's only for 10 weeks until my exam. Then I'll go back to English. He says I don't sound like his wife when I speak German. I asked if it was because my mistakes were jarring or my vocab was causing issues. He said it just didn't feel like he was speaking to his wife. I think it's vital that I stick to my plan to get my speaking practice in. He seemed a bit sad after I said no. Wibta, if I carry on auf Deutsch? Update. Thanks to most of you for very well thought out and reasonable comments. I tried to read as many as possible and appreciate the different viewpoints. My husband came home this evening, we ate dinner, and I apologized, in English, for not being very understanding. I showed him the post. Some of the comments made us laugh so much. We discussed and found a healthy compromise that works for both of us to help me prep but not exhaust him after a long day. I've also taken on your suggestions of other places I can try and hone my German conversation skills, and will try some of them out.
AITA for refusing non-veg at a social gathering? I've been a strict Jain vegetarian since birth. It's not just a diet for me, it's a deeply held belief. Recently, I visited a relative's home where they don't follow the same dietary restrictions, but they know about mine. As dinner was being served, they casually offered me some mutton curry. I politely declined and reminded them that I'm vegetarian and would stick to cottage cheese curry and flatbread. I thought that would be the end of it. But no, just moments later, they again insisted I take some non-veg, as if my earlier response didn't even matter. At that point, I firmly told them that I found it disrespectful and that it actually hurt my sentiments. The room got a little awkward, but honestly, I felt like I had to say something. My friends who were invited as well told me that I was rude while refusing the food for the second time. They also mentioned I should have not called the host disrespectful during the conversation. However, what triggered me was the fact that host smirked after offering me food for the first time. Now, I can't stop wondering, was I being too sensitive, or was my reaction justified? AITA?
AITA for refusing to give my late aunt's heirloom necklace to her daughter. My aunt passed away a few years ago, and before she died, she gave me Just 27F, a beautiful antique necklace that had been in our family for generations. She told me she wanted me to have it because we were extremely close. She knew I'd treasure it, and I have ever since. Now her daughter, Lily 29F, is getting married, and last week she asked if she could borrow the necklace as her something old. I said yes at first because I thought it was just for the wedding day, but then she casually mentioned that she actually wanted to keep it permanently. I was confused and asked what she meant, and she said it should have been hers all along since it belonged to her mother. She said it was unfair that I had it instead of her, and that she deserved it more because she is her daughter. I told her, I thought you just wanted to borrow it. Aunt gave this to me because she wanted me to have it. I'm not giving it away. She got upset and said my aunt was probably just being polite when she gave it to me, and that if she were still here, she would have obviously wanted her own daughter to have it instead. She told me I was being selfish and should do the right thing. Now my mom and a few relatives are saying I should just give it to her because it was her mom's, and it would mean a lot to her on her wedding day. But to me, this isn't just some family heirloom. It was a gift meant for me. I understand why she wants it, but my aunt had her reasons for giving it to me. I don't think I should be guilted into handing it over just because Lily suddenly decided she wants it now. AITA for not moving out of the way after someone deliberately walked in front of me after seeing me. So today I, 24F52, was on the way home from work and walked down the stairs to the underpass to get to my train track. Since I was a kid, I was taught to stick to the right side. I was so far on the right side that the wall was literally next to me. While moving down the stairs, I see an old man, 60-ish, on my left, his right side, like 20 meters away. We make eye contact and he starts moving to his left side where I was walking through. Weird, I think, but I have recently started to not move out of the way when I am walking on the most right side, so I kept walking while barely touching my shoulder. He moves right in front of me. I keep refusing to move until he is right in front of me and blocks me. Now, the underpass is a good 10 meters wide, so he would have still had plenty of space to move around. I still refuse to move out of the way and also come to a stop. He stared at me for a few seconds before touching my right shoulder, unsuccessfully trying to push me away, saying, "Attention, madam." I look at him, smile, before also putting my hand on his shoulder, mimicking him, and gently push him away, saying, "Attention, sir." At this point, his smug grin turned to him looking dumbfounded as he finally moved away. But not without calling me an asshole. I want to add that he walked completely normal, and we were nowhere close to the stairs anymore to which he would have needed the railing. We were also almost the only two people in the underpass, AITA. Edit. I forgot to mention that I live in Switzerland. Also, he started out on my left, his right, side of the underpass, so he crossed a few meters over before ending up in my path. Also, I obviously do move for people with mobility issues, or can't move around freely. The rule of not moving concerns people that are just as capable of moving as I am. AITA for leaving a party because my date refused to get me water. I'd been seeing someone I met through mutual friends. We'd had good times one-on-one, and when he invited me to events with his friends, I'd contribute to the group dynamic by never showing up empty-handed and offering to grab drinks for others. Fast forward to a holiday-themed party with his friends. My date and I planned to meet there and hang out afterward. I spent the day cleaning my condo and preparing mulled wine to bring. During the party, people were getting drinks for one another, including me when I served the wine. At one point, I was sitting on the couch, blocked in by only my date on one side and many others on my other side. I was tired and didn't feel like tightly squeezing past people I didn't know, so I asked my date if he could grab me a glass of water. He shook his head, and after I said, "Huh," he said, "No, I was just up, and you could have asked before I sat down again." I was taken aback because I view small gestures, like grabbing water, as basic acts of care for friends, but especially for someone you're dating. That moment, combined with a long day of preparation, left me feeling drained. Since the party was winding down and I didn't have the energy to engage further, I said my goodbyes and called a ride. My date offered to walk me out and said he felt hurt that I was leaving. I explained I needed to recharge, but that he was welcome to come over after the party. As we walked out, I jokingly mentioned how him not getting me water surprised me. He replied, "Wow, that really upset you, huh? I have to be guarded about these things, you know." Later, we texted, but he seemed more upset about me leaving than interested in listening to why I felt drained. When I tried to call, he didn't answer. His texts were curt, and I eventually told him I'd let him decompress. 2 days later, I called to discuss what happened. He said he'd call that evening, but didn't reach out until 3 days later, saying, "I'm not dodging you. I've just been busy." At that point, I was over it, especially since he never acknowledged the misunderstanding or my attempts to resolve it. A month later, we finally had a conversation. He explained that getting me water felt subservient and was something I had to earn through time and being in the trenches with him. He also said I didn't understand how busy his life was. For context, I work multiple jobs. I calmly explained that grabbing water for someone isn't about being subservient, but a small act of kindness. After reflecting, I feel his responses and handling of the situation were disrespectful and indicative of bigger issues. So, is there an asshole here? I appreciate the perspective.
AITA for not telling my uncles we won't inherit anything? Before my 18th APA grandma passed away, she and I had an arrangement. She gave me money to buy horror novels, and I read them to her twice a week. We spent a fair amount of time together. During one of our last sessions, she confided in me that she wanted to leave all her money to charities, but decided to leave a college fund for my cousin, Hot 16F, since Uncle Henry lost a massive part of his savings through gambling. The guy thought he could recover all he lost by making a big bet on Mike Tyson, but then Jake Paul won, so he ended up losing even more. Grandma asked me not to tell anyone about this, and I didn't. I kept my mouth shut. When my dad and uncles found out, they reacted in different ways. Dad wasn't really that surprised, since Grandma was rather charitable, especially in her later years. Uncle Henry was grateful for the fund, but Uncle John was quite upset, saying that she's their mom, and should have left them something. All three of them got suspicious, and asked me if Grandma told me about this during one of the afternoons I spent at her place. I admitted that I knew about it, and Uncle John said I should have told them first instead of letting them find out this way. That it wouldn't hurt so much if he had time to prepare instead of being caught off guard. AITA for telling my SIL to get over herself and stop trying to one-up us. Throwaway account. My 29 wife, 27F, and her sister, 30F, got pregnant around the same time. The babies are the first of a new generation on their side of the family, so everyone was excited. SIL was further along, but my wife ended up giving birth on week 32. Plus, she had some complications that had her hospitalized. My nephew was born 2 weeks later at full term. Apparently, SIL was resenting having her thunder stolen and felt like she and her new baby weren't getting enough attention. She keeps making these comments like she's trying to one-up us. First, she was saying how sorry she was that my wife missed the golden hour because they had to take our son to the NICU. This upset my wife since during her hospitalization she was often too sick to visit the NICU, and she's already feeling crappy about missing skin to skin on those first few weeks. After we started to bring our son to family gatherings, SIL started comparing the boys, saying how much bigger and more alert her son looks like compared to ours, and how he hit more milestones. Last weekend we had lunch at my in-laws. My wife and I were excited to tell everyone that our son laughed for the first time earlier that day. He's 5.5 months old, 3.5 corrected. Mill and Phil were having a good time watching the video when SEL made another comment about how her son did that a month ago. I don't know why that was the last straw, but I just about had it. I told Sil that she's pathetic for trying to one-up a freaking baby, that her full-term son wasn't special for being more developed than a preemie, that she should get the fuck over not giving birth to the first grandbaby. Needless to say, this ruined lunch and my wife's family is pissed. I admit I was harsh with my words and tone, and this was the first time I confronted her family like this. Up until now, we'd each handle our own relatives. But these comments upset my wife and pissed me off. So AITA for being so harsh and not staying in my lane? AITA for calling ski patrol on a guy after he hit my son with his skis? My son, 11, and I, 44M, recently booked a trip to go skiing in Colorado. It was my son's first time skiing, but he had seen a lot of skiing videos on YouTube, and he seemed really excited for the trip. We also live in Florida, so this is not the trip you can just go and do whenever you like. We are not rich. I grew up in Utah, and I loved skiing when I was younger, and I would say I'm an expert on the mountain. The first day goes all good, and my son really enjoyed skiing for the first time, even though he fell a lot, LOL. I made sure to be as supportive and caring as possible, even when he was struggling, because I wanted to make this as fun an experience as possible for him. However, on the second day of skiing, he says he's finally ready to ski down the whole mountain, and so we take the lift to the top. Luckily, there was a way to get down the mountain while only staying on green level trails, so we took that way. My son is having a blast when all of a sudden this guy in his 20s careens into my son from behind going on insane speeds, wiping them both out. My son immediately started crying and came running to me after he got his skis off, and once he calmed down, he ran to the lodge where my wife was, and she decided to take him to the doctor's office. I immediately confront the guy for being so reckless, and he simply says that I should have been paying better attention to my kid, and then he rode off. That was the final straw for me, and I called the ski patrol number in the app and told the guy the situation and what the skier was wearing, and they told me they would find him and kick him out. Later on, I saw him getting escorted out of the park by 2 ski patrol officers, and when he saw me, he immediately started cursing me out and calling me a horrible dad. I tried to ignore it, but now I'm second-guessing myself if I overreacted. So, AITA?
AITA for avoiding my mom after she told me to suck it up when I broke my fingers. I was at the gym where a heavy weight fell onto 3 of the fingers on my left hand. I was in such severe pain that I thought I was going to pass out. While sobbing, I called my mom. as I am at college, far away from home. I told her that I thought I broke my fingers and that I wanted to go to urgent care. My mom has never been empathetic for physical injuries and mental health issues. When she heard me, she told me to suck it up and rest. I figured I would wait for a while. Who knows? She could be right. Edit. I feel I should mention that my fingers did not look deformed, so other than the bruising and swelling, I was unsure if they were broken or not. While waiting, my roommate came home and saw the state that I was in. She took one look at my hand and assured me we had to go to urgent care. I didn't want to betray my mom, because she always said to never go to the ER or urgent care due to our terrible insurance. However, I went and researched the cost of an out-of-pocket x-ray at the nearest urgent care, and it was only $200, which I was willing to pay. I told my mom this, and she said, "You better hope your fingers are broken, or else I'm not helping you pay for anything." So, I was under a weird circumstance where I hoped my fingers were broken for the sake of saying, "I told you so," to my mom. I finally went to urgent care and got an x-ray. They confirmed both my pointer and middle fingers were broken, and may need surgery if not healed properly. When I called my mom back later that day and told her the news, she basically laughed and told me I should be glad that they were broken. 3 weeks have gone by, and I have not spoken to her since. She's texted me and asked for updates on my fingers, but I feel conflicted on why she's suddenly acting like she cares when she clearly didn't in the first place. She's also not someone you can easily share your feelings with, so I'm not sure how to go about our next conversation. Should I just ignore it, or try to bring it up with her? Edit. I was not expecting the overflow of NTA comments, and I have gotten asked about why I believe I am the asshole. I spoke to my brother about it, and he told me that I was overreacting and that she just wants to check up on me and probably feels bad for diminishing my issues. AITA for declining to invite a woman who has called herself a total klepto into my home. I joined a women's social club 6 months ago because I've been struggling to make friends after relocating to a new-to-me city. It took me a while to warm up to the group and to connect with people I actually had anything in common with. I had to wade through a lot of Botox parties and boozy brunches to find things I was interested in. But I did, and I started coming to group events fairly often. I hang out most often with the women who like to read, do crafty things, bake, skywatch, etc. Among these women is one, I'll call her AmItheA, who has made several comments about how she's a total klepto. I think that she makes these comments to seem cool to the other people in the group. I reached out to some of the women I see regularly at these events and invited them over to my place to watch a TV show we'd been talking about and do crafty stuff. They were excited and agreed to come. Unfortunately, Andrea found out, I assume someone asked if she was going, and reached out to me to ask if she was invited. I considered this for a bit and then told her no, as I only had so much room at home. She didn't believe me and asked me for the real reason, saying, "I thought we got along," which, yes, is true. I told her I'm not comfortable inviting a kleptomaniac into my home, that I've worked hard to have the things I have, and it would be stupid for me to invite her knowing that she openly brags about it. She said okay, very quietly. She then said, "You're painting me out to be some horrible criminal when you don't even know anything about me." I said that her being proud to call herself a klepto was all I needed to know. She said that I was a high school mean girl and ableist. I am unsure what the foundation for that statement is. This unfortunately has spilled over to the group, which is frustrating. But what has me the most surprised is that there are so many people defending her and telling me that I'm out of touch and take things too literally. Am I? AITA for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler? Info and update. He's sick. Be nice. I agree, and I also felt unwell. I was never mad at him for being sick. I was mad about the wake-ups and the last-minute change in plans that could have been avoided with better communication. Grace and empathy should go both ways. Wait until it's your turn to be sick. We have been together 10+ years, and we each have the same standard of self-sufficiency, but we generally help each other when sick. Soup, tea, meds, the works. Within reason. Extra TLC is appreciated, but we're not children. Never have I ever woken him up repeatedly throughout the night. This was an unusual situation that was exacerbated by my sleep debt and his sudden symptoms. Why didn't he help you over the weekend? He did help a lot during the daytime on the weekend to give me rest breaks because I did the overnight wake-ups, but that does not include naps. I find it extremely difficult to take naps, and he knows it. My mind just doesn't turn off until bedtime. He generally can't help with the overnights because of a legitimate medical condition that could worsen with repeated lack of sleep. Husband does all the wake-ups and lets me sleep in on the weekends to make up for the overnights. Why didn't you sleep in the guest room? We don't have one anymore. Why didn't you take the couch if he was sick? Symptoms didn't hit hard until after we went to sleep, which is why we didn't initially sleep separately or change the morning arrangements the night before. Why didn't you take the couch after the first few wake-ups? I'm used to a few wake-ups. I wasn't expecting the next 5. Once I'm physically up, I'm mentally UP. If I had gotten up from the bed, it would have been difficult to go back to sleep at that point. Does he have sleep apnea? I've suggested to him in the past that he does and should do a sleep study. He hasn't yet, and I'm not going to make an appointment for him. Snoring and nightmares aren't his fault. I already said they weren't. The nightmares are regular for him. We sleep separately often because of them, per my request. We'll go months sleeping apart, but then he'll say that he doesn't sleep well alone, and since we only have the couch as a separate sleep space, I often cave and let him sleep with me again. He doesn't let me take the couch. Why did you take a sick child to daycare? Daycare's policy is 24 hours fever-free without other symptoms or medication. I could never be married to you. You're so selfish. I wasn't taking applications. But can you feel that sexual tension between us? Or is that just me? After seeing all perspectives, including husbands, I'll agree with an ESH verdict with me being 20% the asshole. I had a right to be mad, but I should not have blown up. He should be able to ask for help, but within reason. I apologize for being snappy. He apologized for the wake-ups. No divorce lawyers necessary. AITA for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler. I plan on sending this post to my husband once the verdict is in, whichever way it goes, so I'll add as much of his perspective as I can. Our toddler was sick through the weekend. I was up with him one night from 12:15 to 2:45 and off and on the next night. I probably got 10-12 hours of broken sleep the whole weekend. Yesterday, my husband mentioned he was starting to feel a little sick. Last night, I went to bed early hoping to catch up on rest. All throughout the night, my husband woke me up way more often than my toddler ever does, even on a bad night. Some of the times were not directly his fault, but other times I felt like he was being inconsiderate. 1. He snored loudly in my ear. 2. He asked for another blanket because he had the chills. I told him it was at the foot of the bed. He asked for help and reminded me that he helps me when I'm sick and that he'd still do the morning routine with our son. 3. He had a nightmare I had to shake him awake from. Normal. 4. He whispered at Alexa to ask for the time. 5. He asked for another blanket. I gave him mine. 6. He made a phone call, in bed, and left a full-volume voicemail to his work to let them know he'd need to take a sick day. 7. At 5:30 in the morning, he woke me to ask if I could do the wake-up routine with our son. I do bedtime. He does wake up. At this point, I blew up. I expressed how mad I was that he woke me up all night long, and now I have to wake up early to do what he said he'd still do. And I don't get to stay home and catch up on sleep. He said I was in the wrong because marriage is in sickness and in health. I immediately got up to get ready. He said I didn't have to start getting ready so early. I said yes, I did because I start work at 7:30. I barely make it to work on time when I wake up at 6, and now I have to unexpectedly skip my shower, get my toddler ready, get his food ready for the day, feed him breakfast, drop him off at daycare, then take myself to work. I said he was a grown man with a cold, and he robbed me of the rest I needed, and that I'll be sleeping on the couch tonight. At that point, I asked for space, and we haven't talked since. I was late for work, which is a big deal at my job. I might be the asshole for blowing up at my husband when he asked for support during an unexpected illness. Am I the asshole for being mad at my sick husband? AITA for refusing to take my daughter to her birthday party? My 33F daughter, Cleo, 5-yo, hates pink. She has disliked the color and almost everything to do with it since she was about 3 or so. She has one pink shirt she likes and one pink stuffed animal, and that's it. My father's partner, Prue, refuses to accept that Cleo doesn't like pink. Over the years, she's made several attempts to push the color onto her. Pretty much every gift she's ever given her was some shade of pink, no matter how many times I tell her to stop. She has tried to give me dozens of different reasons why I should encourage my daughter to try different shades. It clearly upsets Cleo, but Prue keeps doing it. About a week ago, my father invited me, my husband, and our children for dinner at his place. He said he and Prue had a surprise for the kids. Right before we left home, my younger sister, who still lives with our father, texted me. She warned me that the surprise was actually a small birthday party Prue had planned for Cleo. That alone threw me off, because my daughter's birthday was in November. My father did miss her actual birthday party due to work, but still. Also, my son turns 9 in March, so I had figured his would be the next party we'd have. Then she sent me photos of how the place was decorated, and it very clearly wasn't actually meant for Cleo. Literally every piece of decor was pink. The table, the tableware, the balloons, everything. She'd gotten pink banners and glued pink foil fringe curtains on the doors. Even the cake was pink. I showed everything to my husband, and we agreed not to take the kids there. I texted my father the following. Hey, sister, told me everything. We're not coming. We're taking the kids to McDonald's and telling them that was your surprise. You and Prue can come if you want. We're paying. We did exactly that. My father did show up, without Prue, but he was cold with us and left 20 minutes after arriving. Both him and Prue are pissed. My father is angry that my husband and I dismissed his partner's heartfelt gesture towards our daughter. Prue also told me that I'm the reason Cleo is restrictive, I also don't like pink, and I'm raising her to be an ungrateful, spoiled brat who is unwilling to compromise. To be honest, I get how I could be in the wrong here, but at the same time, this just felt like Prue trying to push something Cleo doesn't like onto her yet again. My sister and one of my brothers are on my side, though my sister did say I had been rude. My other brother is on the fence. AITA, edit. My daughter doesn't know I dislike pink, nor would I care if she did like it. Edit. I have written an update, as well as a separate post to sum up the comments I left here.
80 for telling my brother he has to buy my half of our inherited home. My brother, 51, is living in my dad's childhood home. Granted, all of us kids and friends have, but we all paid rent, bills, and property tax. My brother, on the other hand, has not paid a dime to my dad, ever. He has lived with my parents his entire life. Other than 7 years, he was married and has always been a big, spoiled brat. He works and gets paid very well, but my mom still managed his money. Anyway, my parents have recently passed, and we both have inherited the house. I refuse to pay for his bills and property tax if he's living there. I have a mortgage and other things of my own. I told him he has to buy my half of the house, and he threw a fit and said that I'm selfish. Why should he give me money for something I got for free? AITA for putting my foot down?
AITA for hiding my expensive shampoo and conditioner from my friend's guest. I, 28F, share an apartment with my friend, 34M. Last weekend, while we were away, he invited his female friend, Sarah, to stay over. When we got back, I noticed she had used most of my shampoo and conditioner without asking. I had splurged on these expensive products to treat myself. I also make a lot less money than my friend. Today, Sarah came over again for a visit and asked to shower at ours before heading to a dance class. However, I'd taken my expensive products to my room this time, leaving only my friend's basic shampoo out for her to use. When she couldn't find the conditioner, she asked my friend, who came to my room to ask me about it. I told him that she's his guest, and it's not my responsibility to provide spa products for her. My friend got mad and thinks I'm rude and petty. AITA, update. I showed my friend where to buy the shampoo and conditioner. He said he's sorry for getting angry and ordered new bottles for everyone to use. Thanks for all the NTA comments. AITA for telling my mom not to babysit anymore when my husband changed his mind. My husband is a lawyer and I'm an engineer. We both have intense careers, but he wanted a second child. I was happy with our daughter, but he really wanted another child. We now have 2 daughters aged 3 and 1, and I came back from maternity leave and my mom took over full-time caring for them. We both work full-time, so she takes them when we work. My mom is a nurse, but quit to look after our kids. I insisted we should pay her the going rate for daycares in the area, which is around $1,500 a child, so we pay $3,000 for her to care for our children, cook for them, etc. She will also pick them up sometimes, as we may need to be in the office early. My husband complained a lot about how expensive it was to pay her. He makes $140K and I make $110K, so we can afford to pay her, but he thinks we are overpaying her and complained about it to her face. My mom is not very confrontational, but she got very upset. I argued with him on this for months until I decided it was better for her to go back to work and for us to use daycare. Finding a daycare was hard, and now we pay $1,800 a child for daycare, and daycares obviously will not pick up your children, nor will they cook for them. We have less time now and at a higher cost for our children to be sick a lot during the winter season. So far this year, we have been sick as an entire household 3 times. I was on a business trip and my husband was late picking up our children, which resulted in a $75 late charge, which my mom would have not charged extra for. My husband is now demanding that my mom leave her job to go back to babysitting our children, but I won't let her because he did no research into the real cost of childcare and kept complaining how expensive it is, even when I showed him. My mom, even part-time, makes $4,300 a month as a nurse, and I told my husband, if we want her doing the childcare, we need to pay her that amount. Remember, we already pay $3,600 for daycare. He wants her to go back to the $3,000 charge, and is angry and claims my mom is asking for too much for such a simple job, and that a grandma taking care of her grandchildren is a privilege. I told her not to quit, and him that she isn't babysitting, which reduces his number of free hours and makes our lifestyle harder, so he is angry at me for demanding we pay her what I feel she is owed. My mom probably would do it for free if we wanted, but I definitely don't think it's fair. She needs to save for retirement, and she has bills as well. AITA here.
AITA for not giving the dollhouse I built to my niece, but to my wife as a gift. It's not a dollhouse, but I didn't want anyone to think I was being misleading on purpose by saying I built a house. I, 28M, made my wife, 28F, a replica of a house that's known to fans of a musician, but wouldn't mean much to others. It's about 2 feet tall and wasn't very complicated to build, but my wife had said a few times over last year that she thought it would be cool to have for little trinkets. She's like a crow with her trinkets. I love it. She didn't know I was making it for her, but I did sneakily involve her in its creation through having her make a couple TikToks when we were out together so I could get the colors right. She has no idea, LOL. I was excited, so I showed a picture to my brother. He told me it was cool, but didn't get the purpose. He showed it to my niece Ava, 13F, who knew what it was and said she wanted one too. My brother asked if I would give it to Ava for her birthday. I said no, it's for my wife, but I could make one with Ava. It would help teach her some basic woodworking skills, which they don't do in schools here anymore. I'd like that. Brother said if it was so easy, then I could make a second one for my wife and just give this one to Ava, since her B-day is the end of the month. Again, I said no, this was done specifically for my wife. He seemed to accept that, but then came back to me and said, "Isn't it a little weird to make a dollhouse for an adult woman?" I told him it's not a dollhouse, just a fancy shelf. He argued that makes it worse, because Ava would actually play with it. He must have gone to complain to Mom about it, he is the younger brother, because Mom called me to tell me that it was stupid to give my wife a dollhouse. I tried to explain that it's not a dollhouse, but she just kept saying, "That's stupid." This weekend I was at their house, and Ava kept bringing up the house and laying it on thick with statements like, "I've always wanted one just like it." She kept asking why my wife wanted a dollhouse. I said, it's not a dollhouse, but she kept asking why she needed a dollhouse. I told my brother that he was encouraging his kid to be manipulative, and I really didn't like it, so I was going to leave. He told me that I was dangling the house over her head like McDonald's and teasing her, and that it made me a bad uncle. Being a good uncle is important to me, and I do feel for the girl because she's a big fan too. I admit I have a blind spot for this because I don't have kids, and maybe I shouldn't have shared the picture with my brother to begin with. Am I really the asshole for not just giving it to her? Yes, it was easy to make, and I could make another. Quickly. Sorry guys, Ava isn't my brother's biological daughter. There's a long story involved that I didn't want to add, but I should have realized the age would be surprising. I still see her as my niece regardless, but I get why that would be alarming. Nothing bad happened or anything?
AITA for yelling at my friends and leaving dinner after they all made fun of me and gave me a gay intervention. I, 21F, went out to dinner with 5 friends, 1 guy, 4 girls. For context, I look very masculine. Short hair, deep voice, no makeup, masculine style, etc. Sometimes I get mistaken for a man. Usually if it's by someone I'm never going to see again, i.e. cashier or waiter. I don't really care to correct them. My friends and I were having dinner at a nice fancy place, and the waiter came to our table and he mistook me for a man. One of my friends responds, "Oh, she's not a man, she's just a lesbian." Everyone laughs and the waiter apologized. After he left, I asked my friend, "Why did you say that?" I have never said or indicated in any way that I'm a lesbian because I'm not. I've never had a boyfriend, but that's because I'm not interested in a romantic relationship. But we have talked about male celebrities we find attractive. I thought it was clear I was straight. My friend rolled her eyes at my question and said, "Oh, come on, we all know you're a lesbian." I was shocked. More friends jumped in and said, "Yeah, you don't have to lie to us." I wasn't lying. They started making jokes about me dressing like a lesbian, hiding my sexuality, being in a glass closet. Everyone knows. It's 2025, no one cares, etc. It all seemed like it wasn't a joke, and they actually believed it. One of my friends, Eva, even joked, "You were obviously in love with Inez." I showed genuine shock at this remark, and she reassured me. "It's okay. We all don't mind if you're gay." Inez was an on-off childhood friend of mine, and our friendship ended badly a few months ago. I was very upset by it and confided in my friends. I never thought they would use it against me. I told them firmly that I'm not a lesbian, this isn't funny, and I was not in love with Inez. Once they saw I was being serious about this, their tone and attitude became less jokey. They started lecturing me on self-acceptance, being in denial, internalized homophobia, I'm not homophobic, heteronormativity, compulsory heterosexuality, etc. It was like some sort of gay intervention. I found it absolutely ridiculous. I yelled at them for being bad friends because I couldn't even dress how I want or talk to them about my troubles, and I left the restaurant. It's the morning after, and I have serious regret. I don't know what to say to them and what to do. AITA for kicking a pregnant woman out of her seat. Okay, so this happened a few hours ago, and I've only just calmed down because I hate conflict. Basically, I was doing a long travel day, 5-ish hours, so I booked my train in advance to ensure that I had a reserved seat. When I get on the train, a woman is in my seat, so I politely inform her that I think that's my seat, show her my ticket, and ask her to move. She checks her ticket and just says, "Well, I must have sit in the wrong seat," and puts her head down. I say that it's my seat, and could I please sit in it? At this point, her partner sitting opposite her starts speaking at me in what I perceive to be an aggressive tone. He suggests I find another seat, which there are none because it's busy. And I say, "But I booked that seat and there are no other available seats in the carriage." He then raises his voice and says, "Well, someone else is in our seats and that his missus is pregnant." I say I understand, and that I have a heart defect, which I do, and said everyone has their own medical issues and reasons standing for long periods of time might be difficult. And here I could be the asshole. I ask him to not speak to me in an aggressive tone, and that I will make a complaint. He then starts swearing at me, and I ask him to stop. Eventually, the woman gets up and allows me to sit there, and he continues to berate me, saying he hopes I feel good for myself and that I'm quiet now I have my seat. When really, I just stopped engaging as I felt there was no point. One of the men who was sat beside him offers that him and his partner sit in the seats opposite me. It's a table seat. At which point he sits his partner down and then laughs at me and points in my face. Eventually, when the ticket inspector comes around, they are asked to move her to their assigned seats, and she asks if I'm okay, as another passenger had made a complaint on my behalf. Even so, was I the asshole? Should I have just left them alone as she was pregnant? And did I in any way escalate the situation? Update. As I don't know how able I'll be to respond to all the comments, thank you sincerely to everyone that has engaged with this post. I've learned a lot about myself and my ability to let anxiety and overthinking get in the way of trusting my decisions. I honestly came into writing this thinking that I escalated the situation. So to have people affirm that it's just standing my ground and that that is all right has been really gratifying. It has taught me, however, I have a way to go with standing up for myself and not being such a people pleaser. If I don't get to respond, just know I appreciate your engagement with my post nonetheless, and this has really helped to calm me and give me insight after an incredibly stressful situation. AITA for leaving a family gathering and taking the cake with me after getting my feelings hurt. Update. Hi everyone, I just wanted to follow up and say thank you to everyone for the responses. I have a lot to think about when I next go to therapy, today, actually, and work on. I do want to clear up a few things that I've seen come up a lot on the comments. I am not an AA. I tried AA before, and it was not compatible for me. It works for a lot of people very well, and I'm happy for you if it works for you. So stuff about the steps and personal inventory are not relevant to me. It wasn't a party for my niece. It was just a family dinner. The cake was mine, and wasn't brought for my niece. I didn't take it because I wanted to get back at them. I took it because it's my favorite cake, and I wanted to eat it because it was my thing that I earned. I don't know why they opened wine for my niece getting into the gymnastic program, but I also don't think it's my place to say anyone else has a drinking problem, and I'd prefer to have eyes on my own paper. AITA for leaving a family gathering and taking the cake with me after getting my feelings hurt. I, 27F, hit 1 year sober from alcohol at the beginning of the year. This was a huge accomplishment for me. It was bigger to me than finishing college. I told my family that next time we were together for family dinner, I had something to celebrate. This all happened at my mom's. The kids were playing and the adults were hanging out. I took the moment to share that I'd reached 1 year sober and how good I felt about it. They went with, "Oh, that's what you were talking about," and "Has it been a year already?" I am embarrassed to admit I hoped someone would say they're proud of me. My BL Steve looked at my sister and they both said, well, at the same time, and she said, "Since we're all here, niece, just got into a specific gymnastics thing. It's been a long road, but she did it." Steve popped some wine they'd brought and started giving everyone glasses, cups. He made eye contact with me and his face fell. I had this gnawing feeling, so got up from the table. I took a walk. I tried to get through the moment mentally so I could be present for my niece to celebrate her success. But when I got back to the house, my sister asked me why I left without saying anything. I said I needed a minute to myself. She looked at me funny and said, "Okay." I said I'd shared something I was very proud of, and she bulldozed over it. My mom put her hand up and asked me what my news was. I said that I'd told them I hit 1 year sober. Mom said my generation always wanted praise for doing the bare minimum. That wasn't an accomplishment. It was just what I needed to do, like graduating high school. I tried to make it through to dinner, but found myself just not in the mood anymore. I decided to go home. Here is the direct thing I am being called a butthead for. I'd brought a small berry chantilly cake, my favorite, to share after dinner. It was the thing I decided I earned. The kids had definitely seen it. On my way out, I decided to take it home with me. I guess when they realized the cake wasn't in the garage fridge anymore, my sister called to ask me why I took it. I said I did because it was my cake to celebrate my accomplishment. She said, word for word, "Are you fucking serious? Oh my God, Emma, grow up. You are such a fucking baby." My mom later texted me directly to tell me how disappointed she was that I threw a tantrum because my niece got more attention than me. I don't think her read of what happened is right, but that is why I am asking you guys. Am I the asshole because I took home the cake in the end? Was that really childish of me, considering the kids saw it and then didn't get any? As I was putting on my shoes to leave, Steve found me and directly apologized and said that he was completely oblivious in the moment. I know he did not do anything to intentionally hurt me.
AITA for telling my classmates that I don't want an American name. Hi, so basically I'm an Irish dude who recently moved to America for a year or so, and basically when I introduced myself to my new American classmates, they all decided that my name, Ciaran, is too hard to spell pronounce, so they all collectively decided to give me a American name. Practically everyone has started to call me Connor instead of my actual name, and it's starting to piss me off. I have told them many times that I actually don't mind if they pronounce, spell, remember it wrong, just as long as they're calling me by my actual name. Then even a few teachers are calling me Connor, and I get a little pissed off and tell everybody if they could please just call me Kyron, as polite as I possibly can. Everyone told me I was being dramatic and have started to call me even other names just to annoy me, like Caleb or Cade. Every time I bring up wanting to be called my actual name, they all roll their eyes and give me snarky comments. Of course, I do like my classmates, and they're all nice, but it does slightly piss me off. Am I being overdramatic, or do I have a fair point?
AITA for moving out while my cousin is struggling financially. I, 23F, moved in with my aunt 6 summers ago after she offered that I stay with her family instead of the college dorms. I figured living with them was a good deal, especially since she and her husband traveled a lot and would be out of the house for months at a time. My aunt and uncle didn't pay rent because they traveled a lot, so my 2 cousins and I paid the rent and bills, but they still let me pay less than them. 2 years ago, their eldest brother, Mark 37, moved in with us after his GF of 14 YRs broke up with him because he still hadn't proposed to her and had no intention of marrying or having kids with her. His GF was the one who supported him financially. He'd struggled to get the pharmacist job he wanted because of an exam he had to take and his bad exam anxiety. It was only temporary, so this wasn't a problem until I realized how he was. Useless around the house and constantly peed on my toilet seat. His mom would apologize to me when it happened, clean up after him, and would ask me to just endure it and pretend he wasn't even there. I let it go because her second son, Nick 29, paid more rent than his sister Amanda 26. And I and Amanda made our meals and did some of the housework. Then, about a year ago, my share of the rent increased. Amanda and I were now paying the same amount in rent, and Nick was paying about $150 more than us. That's when I noticed Mark wasn't paying rent. Still, I let it go. Another year passed, and Amanda got serious with her BF and left the house more often. It's when I realized she was cleaning up after him more than I thought, and with her gone, it was on me. We couldn't say anything to him because he was way older than us, and we would only embarrass and pour salt in his wound. Then, 2 months ago, her BF's new job moved him to TX, and she wants to be with him. This is the perfect moment to move out. So I'm thinking, this is the time we all go our separate ways. But a few days ago, my aunt calls and says, Amanda and I are being selfish for wanting to move out at this time, and begs that we stay a few more months until Mark gets on his feet, and that if we begin moving out, Nick will inevitably do the same, and no one will be there to support Mark. She says that the reason he isn't doing well right now is because of his anxiety and his chronic disease, an illness we actually both share. Amanda ended up agreeing to wait until our lease is up in August, but I told her I wasn't sure about it because I had already found myself a roommate and even began looking for places together. My aunt says that I rushed into it just to have an excuse to leave because I can't put up with her son, I lack empathy, and that I'm ungrateful after everything they'd done for me. And I hate to say that there is some truth to that. Amanda says she's disappointed because she thought I'd stay to help with the rent at least until the lease was up. If not for Mark, then for her. But I don't know, am I really the asshole here? AITA for telling my friend's mom to mind her business. I, 20F, have been friends with a girl that I'll call Mary, 21F, for 7 years. We're very good friends and have stayed close, even though we see each other less now because I moved away for college. The only problem in our friendship is that Mary tells her mom everything. She's an only child, so she's very close to her parents, and she kind of considers her mom like her friend or sister. I would be fine with it if she only talked to her mom about her life, but she also involves her mom in her friends' lives. It used to bother me a bit, but it wasn't that big of a deal. Sometimes when we had arguments, she would go tell her mom, and then her mom would send me a text to take Mary's side, which I hated, but other than that, it was okay. That's mainly because I was a very boring person back in middle school and high school, so even if she repeated everything I said back to her mom, there wasn't much to tell. But recently, in college, my life became a lot more eventful. I started going to parties, dating people, typical college stuff. And as friends do, I was telling Mary about that new stuff. I told her about the guys I dated, told her about how I was struggling mentally because of anxiety, told her about some family problems that I had. And all of that she repeated back to her mom. From time to time, I'd receive texts from her mom, giving me advice on stuff that I told Mary. She would tell me that she thought I should dump this guy or date this one, or what I should do about my family. I told Mary a few times that I was uncomfortable with her telling her mom about my life, but she just said, come on, it's just my mom, so I let it go for a while. But yesterday, I got a text from her mom, and I basically found out that Mary had also been telling her mom about my sex life. I texted Mary to tell her that it was very inappropriate, and she had no right to tell her mom about that because it was personal. She once again brushed it off, so I texted her mom directly, telling her that it wasn't any of her business, that she was overstepping, and she had to stop involving herself in my life. Now Mary and her mom are both angry at me, and I don't know if I'm in the wrong. I get that it was maybe mean to say that, but also it's been years of all of our friends asking Mary to stop telling her mom everything, and I felt like she really had crossed a line. Maybe I should apologize, but I kind of feel like if I do, she'll never stop doing this. I'm conflicted because I do regret reacting that way and not being more calm, but also I don't really feel like I was overreacting. I'd really appreciate getting other people's perspective on this. I know that it seems stupid that I kept telling Mary about my life, but she is my best friend, and I had no one else to confide in through rough times in my life. I was uncomfortable with the rest of it, but I'd mostly just ignore it. I assumed she'd know that my sex life wasn't something she should discuss with her mom, and looking back, of course, I regret it and think it was stupid, but back then I didn't know.
AITA for asking my ex for the money I lent her back? My now ex-fiancée moved over to the U.S. about a year and a half ago, and at the time she asked me for the loan of $1,000, which I happily gave her. As to why it was a loan and not a gift, I'd already gifted a lot, and the phrase loan was hers and not mine, to the point where she messaged me afterwards to say, I owe XXXXX a $1,000 by means of a record. The following year and a half was a turbulent one. She got there with the idea that the streets were paved in gold. They're not. Didn't follow up on her student visa, worked illegally, and then claimed asylum without my knowledge, to list a few issues. Last October, she broke up with me via a 5-minute video call and went no contact after a few messy conversations where I was trying to figure out what was going on. Fast forward to February, where she posted on social media a screenshot of a Valentine's message she received from some guy there. I'm not going to pretend it didn't hurt. It did. The whole ordeal has. And I feel a lot of her posts were aimed to get a reaction. But I left it a few days and sent her a screenshot of her original message stating that she owed me money, along with a screenshot of my bank details. No nasty message, just, please transfer to this account ASAP. Her response, to her credit, she did transfer the money, but then immediately blocked me everywhere immediately afterwards. AITA for requesting my money back?
AITA for not having my niece and nephew in my wedding. My sister has always pushed everyone around and gotten her way. When she got married, it had to be her way and just how she wanted it, since it's her day. When I got engaged, she never congratulated me. She only said she hopes the kids are invited. I decided to have them in the wedding, but was unsure how long to allow them to stay. Also, there are no other children invited. We're having an open bar, and it's going to be a party scene that night. And the venue has recommended that kids go home before the dancing starts, which now I and my fiancé have agreed on, as well as we also do not want the horror stories or kids running into our first dance and things. I reached out to my sister to ask her if arrangements could be made for the kids to be picked up following cocktail hour. Also, there's no kids' meals and the children are very picky. We want them to be a part of our special day, but the reception is not child-friendly at all. She lost it and is telling me I'm taking core memories away from children, and that she's not going to come since the kids can't stay and party, which she planned to do, till late in the night. She lets her children get away with a lot, and I refuse to budge on this. It's not only a liability of injury to the kids, but I don't trust she would watch them and keep them from running into the first dance, etc.